anecdote. We're live, but I'll just start the anecdote. So no,
Yeah.
actually,
Oh no, not the
there'll be
anecdote.
spoilers. No. There'll be spoilers.
Spoilers.
For
Yeah.
Cauldron. Okay, so well, welcome again, Owen, to my show,
Yes.
the Prince of Nothing Owen show,
It has your
as
name
I
in it.
like to call it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
wanted to
Prince and
make
Owen
my own
chat D&D.
show. I didn't have any ideas, so I was like, I'll just copy your title. And then when I was copying, I was like, this is really good. So I figured I'd also copy the format, the
Yep.
YouTube channel. I've copied all
Yeah.
your films
Yeah.
and episodes, and that's just how we're going to run it today.
Huh?
So I
There's
yeah,
a game streamer. There's a video game streamer called Zanny, and people have been requesting he play Uncharted for years. And so eventually he put up a video fairly recently after years, literally years of people daily asking him to play Uncharted. And it starts with them saying, so, hey guys, we're going to play Uncharted, and then cut to his video editor playing Uncharted instead. That is essentially what you're saying is happening on this channel from now on, isn't it?
that's right.
People keep, you just start doing videos replacing me.
I get the credit, but you will still
Yeah.
do all the work, obviously.
Yeah.
No,
Exactly.
that's right, Owen.
Exactly.
It has been, well, not that long, I guess. Why
Mm.
don't we get into what the topic is going to be today?
Yeah. The original Monster Manual. I think that we've kind of got a few ideas for what we want to do, but we want to talk about why the original Monster Manual is so good. This is, by the original Monster Manual, we mean the AD&D 1977, 78. I'm trying to think what it's. I do actually have it here.
It's
If I can find it.
1977,
Oh,
I
no.
want to say.
Yeah, I think because it's the first one that comes out, isn't it? Isn't the MM the first book that comes out as well?
I think
before
it
the PHB?
predates. It is for Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. It's definitely 1977 copyrighted. Yeah.
No, I
27th of
realize mine is
September
on the stairs.
1977. My car forward. Correct. That's right. And a little bit about the format. We were just going to. I guess it'll be a little bit stream of conscious, unstructured, a little bit of a back and forth. There'll be various, dialogues going on, possibly sort of violent argumentation and altercation will erupt as one of us will reveal that they actually don't like it at all halfway through, and then they're like, "No, I want to play Veins of the Earth is better," like, or whatever, some unreasonable position that no one would have, and then we take it on from there.
I think we want to talk. We discussed a bit. Basically, I mean, there's been some interposing factors, haven't there? I mean, we're not quite as pre-planned, but we do have lots of questions from the audience.
That's right. We are prepared, and I think we'll be able to. Sort of ramble on for, provide the intelligent, coherent sort of observations for about 2 hours, and maybe 1 hour of that will just be like invective and just like mean, passive aggressive personal attacks.
Picking designers in the OSR who have previously slighted us. But there's nothing wrong with otherwise. That Jeff Smith. Have you heard of that guy? I hope Canada gets into a war soon. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, geez. Oh, Jeff. Oh, Buddy Scott Entertainment. Okay, we're going right for like the most wholesome.
The nicest guy in the scene.
Person imaginable. It's just like I hear is. Okay, all right.
I feel like OSR feuds often have that character, and I'm not naming names here, but you occasionally pick up. You're like, I feel like it's weird that this guy is part of a feud, or at least is the target when he is maybe the nicest person. In the thing.
It really depends. Like, you're either very soft or it's like a feud, and you're like, I absolutely understand why this happened, right? It's like two drunken homeless meth addicts with knives in the same room.
Don't get me wrong. Some of these are people who both deserve it.
Yeah.
But like some of them, I'm like, there's an example. We've talked about an example before. I'll remind you about it. But where you're like, oh man, that's completely one-sided. I have no idea why anyone is treating this as if it's a discussion.
Of course.
But so we're going to do that, but with Buddy Scott Entertainment. That is what we're going to do. Yeah.
But let's get into it. Okay, the monster.
On which note? What a classic cover. You can see the kinds of things you might need to fight. There's a dragon, there's a centaur, there's a unicorn, and in the caves there's a troll, There's a roper upside down,
I like the
and there's
style too because it's sort of
yeah.
halfway sophisticated, right? It's not a.
Mm.
It's like a talented high school kid made it, right? The perspective isn't quite there. It looks good, but it's also kind of like amateurish. It's like
Yeah.
it's perfect. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and the coloration is bright. I think that is a significant thing, that it's kind of, you look at it and you're like, oh yeah, this has cool stuff in it. Yeah, more art. Boulette.
You wanted to
Mike
go through it
Carr.
alphabetically, or we'll be here a while. That's
Let's
for
do. No,
sure.
we're gonna do. Oh no, it's gonna do. We're gonna do every single entry.
Do you?
I didn't.
I
Didn't we
gotta
not, did we
say,
not discuss it?
yeah. Do you still use it? Actually, I mean, you play 2E,
Yes.
right?
I use it. Yeah, I use it at various points. I use it where it is easier to have out than the binder complete compendiums. So for lots of monsters, also it has some stuff like percentage and layer that complete compendium entries don't have. There are some things. There are very few. I've literally, actually, a Patreon adventure I put up has a monster from the Fiend Folio that was never, even in an annual, ever put out in second edition.
Oh dear.
So yeah. That's so there are a few entries that literally are unique to the original. I use on a regular basis. I have out Monster Manual, Fiend Folio, and Monster Manual 2 are three that I keep out. I will sometimes also have Complete Compendium 1 out. Which is Complete Compendium 1 and 2, that folder.
I noticed that again. I use it quite a bit. Also,
Mm.
oh yeah, it is. It's probably a little bit hard to get the monster manual. I know that they did, at least this is a very long time ago, but like they did reprints of periodic reprints of the PHB and the DMG, but the darn
With different
monster
covers.
manual. Yeah, that's right, with the uglier
Mm.
covers, of course. But yeah, they did do them, and the monster manual was sort of like left behind. It was a lot harder to get. It was harder to get when I started playing, and it's a bit harder to get now.
Yeah. No, I got it as I got my DMGs and my Monster Manual 2, and possibly my Fiend Folio, I think, as well. I think I got all of them at the same time in about 2000 from I got my War Games Club who's moving to America and sold me like those and a bunch of 6 and 25mm miniatures for 15 quid. It was nothing, essentially. It was functionally free. I had to buy a PHB about 10 years ago, a 1E PHB. I don't often use the 1E PHB. I do use the 1E DMG, and I use it for reference, but for use in game, I use the 1E DMG and I use the monster manuals, sometimes at least. So
Gotcha.
yeah.
So what makes the monster manual so good? And do you even need like another monster manual after you have this one?
I think you can. I think there's an argument that you could run.
Begin with why it's good.
Yeah.
This is a
Okay.
two-part
Why
question.
is it good? Yeah.
This is my show, Owen.
As a trained academic, I'm going to start with the end of your question. Thank you, Dr. Nothing. Oh, that's an excellent set of questions. And I want to start with the final thing you said. No, I'll start with the start. That's fine.
Correct.
A comment and a question. By the way, if an academic ever says a comment and a question, the comment is you're wrong, and the question
sucks.
is
exactly.
Yeah, and does it suck? Is the question.
The answer is
but
yes.
no, I think it is. I would say let's put it anecdotally in my experience of getting this as a teen, as a young teen, and opening it, and MM2 as well and stuff, and just being blown away by the vibe, by the art. I didn't have the PHP. I couldn't actually play the game at the time. I was very confused. I was trying to reconstruct things. I understood some of the stats and stuff, so I had a sense of what was going on. I was beginning to play other role-playing games, but I was reading it, and it was something where there was such distillation and condensation of both iconic stuff that I recognized, but often in a guise that was fresh. So pig-faced orcs was fresh. This is actually an OSR kind of discovery, isn't it? The idea of pig-faced orcs are fresh. It was fresh to me, and also of stuff that I wasn't familiar with and was just new, and things like that. You know, the hierarchies of hell and the abyss, and they're reading about modrons, and they're weird, aren't they, and stuff like that, and
Modron
having all these ideas.
that's the second
Yeah,
monster
that's
manual, my
is
friend.
it FF or is it MM2? I'm talking about reading those books in general because those are the three
It's
I had.
MM2. Yeah, I
Yeah,
understand.
yeah, and I think the broader point then was that MM1, and this is truest of MM1. MM1 is the most distilled and the most primordial in that way, because it's the one that deals with so many tropes and types that are not dealt with. Yeah, Liam, I had seen something about Jane Gordon. I didn't know that was what had happened. But yeah. What was I going to say? If for people who study monsters, it's really our 9/11. Yeah, so MM1 is the best distillation, the deepest distillation, the the most original and primordial. I think is what I'd say. So there's so many ideas that are summed up there that are absolute building blocks in a way that some fun monster from MM2 or from the Ravenloft Monsters Compendium, number 2 from 1993 is simply not. They're not as central or as iconic or as basic to the idea of how you play the game. Whereas I think actually understanding all these humanoid tribes that are based on kind of classic tropes and which have become tropes as well in culture, there's a lot to that. Reading about the most famous undead, things like that. What would you say? What would you say your answer is?
Well, yeah. I obviously, of course, also love it. No, I agree with you in part. I wanna add some additional
Mm-hmm.
context because I didn't.
A comment and a question.
Yeah, exactly. I was considering that, but I'm not going to waylay you. No, I didn't have a monster manual. The original one, I didn't have that until I got into the OSR. Before that, it was always again we started with 2E. We ended up with some sort of collected version of the monster manual, right? Of the compendia. I think they brought out like a monster manual of that.
Monstrous manual. Monstrous
Yeah,
manual.
that's the one.
Yep.
That's the one. Then the again third edition monster manual, like all that stuff. And you would think that like every iteration would improve upon what came before, but then you see the original one, and especially as you start using it, you actually realize that like it's actually wrong. Like it gets like uh confused and tangled and a little bit over like or distorted as you go along, and actually somehow they kind of got it right the first time. There's something about the first monster manual, and it's almost impossible to replicate because once you plop it down, you already have it. There's just like such a I guess such a breadth of just content in there. It covers so many different sort of uh, almost like ecologies or types of monsters, right? You have your dungeon
Yeah.
critters, your tribes of monstrous humanoids, your giants, your inhabitants of hell and the elemental planes, these subterranean
Yep.
aberrations like mind flayers, psychic monsters. It just bam, 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 like it hit after hit after hit. And very importantly, I remember in 2E, it sort of copies the style and the format, so you have sort of the same breath, but then it gets really wordy and it gets cluttered up with ecology and habitat slash society sort of paragraphs that just confuse you and fill your mind with just irrelevant drivel and
Yeah.
nonsense, so you get
Well,
bored.
there's certainly what you see in the
Yeah,
format in 2E is that there is a natural desire to explain some things that maybe you're like, oh, I wondered about that. That would be useful to know. You can see the impulse. But what that means is every single monster gets a page that has this extra stuff on it. And
yeah, and
there's obviously some pressure to create it, to write extra stuff. So it's not just, should we define
yeah.
this one extra thing for this one monster? It's everything now has this. And you need to read all of this theoretically to play the game, to play that monster.
Yeah, every monster has several paragraphs of generic flavor text because that's essentially what it is, right? You're almost never going to get any use out of it. Maybe in whatever, if you were playing Forgotten Realms or something like that, you would maybe want to know like what a monster's role is in that world, but for the most part, it's a waste of everyone's time.
Yeah.
And with third edition, well, not only, I mean, the selection there is a little bit better. The only thing is they totally deprioritized and removed all of the giant animals and the the normal animals as well. So it feels more. There's a real vibe change actually if you switch from having those in to barely having those. It becomes more. I don't know. It's almost like you're playing Final Fantasy or like a Pokemon
Mm.
game or something like that,
Yeah,
right?
I do think
No
third
more
and
verisimilitude.
fourth edition is similar. Fourth edition is
Yeah,
similar, of
even
course, in some
worse.
ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, but where there's obviously a sense that no, the idea, what you're going to benefit from, what you should do is you should have like lots of detailed iterations of monsters, which are very much for. It sounds funny because you and I would say that D&D is a game that, as a benefit, includes good and fun combat. So it's not that we're like, oh, it's treating it as if it's a game about combat rather than something else. That's not the complaint. The complaint is it's a game which is about sort of the nitty gritty of very specific pixel bitching kind of wargaming, but pseudo wargaming, video gaming, rather than the kind of. There is a difference in combat that is very apparent, having run a lot of first/second and fourth/fifth. Fourth and fifth are very different, to be clear. And being like, oh yeah, so in AD&D, I'm running some lower level combats. You're running like 10 rounds of a complicated combat in like half an hour. It gets slower as you go up, but you're like, oh yeah, I need to run 10 rounds of this lowish level combat in fourth or fifth. Yeah, that's going to be, hours, many hours. And it's because there are so many more choices for everyone to make. And the choices don't turn out to be that interesting, really. Like, you might think, oh, it's fun to make combos. I do that in video games, but it's not really more fun for anyone, apart from the person who's sitting there describing their cool combo. Anyway, that's kind of an aside, but I think it is a reason why you see that change, is there's a philosophy change towards the kind of gameplay that players presumably will like, but in experience, you don't gain much from that.
Well, I mean, my biggest complaint would be for the like fourth edition style monster manuals or monsters that they all often seem to not have a lot of like fantasy in them at all. That's like the problem. That I think with third edition, what you get is like a lot of like newer, especially newer creatures. If you look at the first edition monster manual, it's often very clear what like the idea is or what a monster is supposed to do. And I know that eventually, this was fourth edition, they started labeling monsters as like bruiser or I don't know what it was, glass cannon or something like that to give you an idea of like their role.
Minion, brute, skirmisher. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you didn't have that here, but you can, if you look at all the monsters, they're not so simple that they leave, that they leave too much open, right? They're reasonably well fleshed out for like AD&D, which always takes into, there's always a little bit more to them, right? You consider some extra variables and that sort of stuff, so they don't feel like just like, oh, here you go, all you need is a little stat block and a single line. Not that they feel fleshed out like that, but they're very like sort of pure in essence. They're not cluttered up. They don't have all this sort of extra shit attached to them, all these extra abilities that kind of just like make it overly complicated. Um, and they're very much sort of still eminently suitable for the play style of like 1E and OD&D, which is primarily, exploration and fantasy adventure gaming, right? That's what they're there for that. There's a few notes to make like say like role playing interesting or whatever the hell, but still they're mostly there to be sort of like obstacles between you and the treasure. But that's done in a way that they're not like totally sterile. In fact, they're full of flavor. They're based on like everything, like mythology, fantasy novels, science fiction novels, even, right? Just prehistory. If you go to all the dinosaurs, it's perfect.
Yeah, I think density as well of potential. The difference between the goblin cutter, that was the fourth edition minion, and minions were one of those things that felt like a post third edition improvement. Like, oh look, you can have lots of mooks, you don't have to worry about having loads of damage
They're
to kill.
complicated skill
Yeah,
modifiers that you'll never use. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
they're meant to be simpler, so you can see the reasoning here. But the goblin cutter, like, oh, he's got one hit point, but he doesn't take any damage on save if he makes a saving throw. Okay, that's fine, and or whatever, and he's got like an attack. Okay, that's fine. The point is, the reason that is so much less interesting than goblin is because and indeed, you can. I'm sure you can have a few different facts about goblins in a little section. But the point is that when you read, I'll get the goblin section up. Actually, I think that's not a bad idea.
Sure, humanoids.
Just as an
Yeah.
example of what we're talking, what we're talking about is that you look at it and you're like, oh, there's so many potential things here, and so many options I could go for that. You don't think about if you're just told, okay, well, here's a stat block and like a single line of facts about them. When you're like, oh, their tribes are like this, and they have this kind of treasure. Those are as examples. Those are facts that start making you think about all kinds of adventures that you could make, rather than just so I guess I'm fighting some goblins. You start thinking about all the other things the goblins might be doing. They might be raiding. They might be in a camp. They might have certain treasure that you want.
Yeah, I think with humanoids, it's the like it's a little bit that goes a long way, right? They seem to sort of recognize like, okay, all of these things are essentially just almost functionally identical. They're only like very minor HD or AC differences. But then the solution is give them like different weapons, make a few notes about them to sort of differentiate them besides like physical appearance. And like a treasure types number encountered, and it's really, you don't really need much to make them feel different if you use them in large amounts like that, because then if they have like, if they're more frequently equipped with bows or pole arms or something, the party will notice if they fight them in large groups. That too, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
You could take the gnoll and not, or the gnome even. The goblin is fine too. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I was going to say, just pop up comment from Ollie here about using MM1-2 FFBs to fit the place in Mountain Blackfang. Yeah, I was going to say one thing, even within 1E, I should actually, I'll make an observation about the Monster Manual, the original one, in a moment. But certainly one thing about even later within the original releases, which are good, as I use those, and I use Deities and Demigods, original edition. The point is, they're great, still great monsters up to the end. However, you're right, you'll occasionally start getting humanoids or a particular monster that you're like, I like this, but it is way more complicated than the stuff in the last book. I suspect this was sometimes seen as a virtue because it's fun and you've got different options. So yeah, that is the thing I think you even see at the start. What I was going to say about the Monster Manual,
Snurfablin are, I'm sure. Well, yeah, like I make no claims about MM2 or Fiend Folio, although it's definitely a bit different. The Snurfablin, that's fair. What is it? They could make the circle, right, and summon an elemental, an earth elemental. That's so cool. But I think it's compared to almost everything that came afterwards, it's very hard to consider like, well, is there a better bestiary? Maybe for a non D&D game, you could make the argument, but
or like a specialized setting, as we briefly spoke about this off stream. But hey, for Dolmenwood, it probably makes sense for such a specialized setting to have a specialized monster book. Like you could see that argument.
Yeah, of course. Like and then you can still have a good it's admittedly having like the more you use it too. Like if you have like 3 monster manuals full of monsters, it's hard to imagine like, okay, it's hard to make something that hasn't been there, like that does not already exist in some form. And of course, but even so, there's like there's dozens and dozens of like new manuals full of content with like worthwhile monsters in there, I'm sure, right?
Oh yeah, you could keep expanding at that some level and get good stuff out of it forever. One thing about the first one I was going to say though is that in terms of distillation, when we talk about it's a distillation, this is because it had been distilled. There had been a process in time of several years, both before OD&D and monsters and OD&D, and then between OD&D and AD&D. So there've been years of careful distillation of a fairly narrow number of monsters, clarification on what worked, experience of it, writing it up, seeing what people did with it, and in the same way that you can never have another first edition DMG, not because you can never have any insights that are worthwhile, not that you can improve on the organization of it, but rather you could never have that particular moment of the original sage having distilled all his thoughts for the last 10 years or so. Don't
Yeah,
worry,
I
Lynch,
mean
we haven't done
it's
too
hard
much.
to match the same sort of like the improvement. The size of the
Yeah,
improvement is so large; it's hard to
yeah,
like replicate that. Like that's
yeah.
for sure. Like I'm sure that there's plenty of areas where you could that you could consider innovating upon. That's totally real. I just had a thought, straight thought. Okay, quick, Owen. Pop quiz in my show.
Mm.
What is the no? I'm gonna actually
Yep.
the two worst things about the Monster Manual that other books don't have. Go. Putting you on the spot. We're on the hot seat.
That some of the illustrations are weird.
I don't know about that. I love
Yeah,
all of them.
I like most of them. I like most of them. I don't know. I don't really have any problems with it.
Okay.
I don't know that there's stuff I would say you could. I think you could come up with. Oh, what if you added this or this? I think it's more realistic to say, what would you love to add? That is, I mean, so someone said what monster. I think Jeff said, what monster would you add? One monster, but not so much that. But like, yeah, wouldn't it be great to
We'll
have
get
had
into that.
this also be a book of layers or something like an actually good
Yeah.
book of layers?
Okay.
But the point is that I don't look at it and think this is really missing anything I would need to run D&D if I only had the original 3 AD&D books.
I look at it and I go, what would be a quality of life improvement is Thaco on every single monster and then XP on every
Mm-hmm.
single monster entry. That's that for me. That's
Yeah,
that would massively improve it. And you can do it
yeah.
with the
I'd
damn
say,
tables, but yeah.
oh yeah, of course. I say this. These are quality of life improvements in second. Also, that second regularizes XP, which is just partly convenient because you're not like, oh yeah, MM2. I should say MM2 and possibly Fiend Folio do have XP per
Yeah.
like
Yeah, they added it later.
they do give
Yes.
you they do that even within first. Yeah, but yeah, second regularizes it, so there's no variation based on hit points. It's just like it doesn't matter. It's a trivial amount. It's going to change, so you just it gives you this many
It
XP.
well, I'm not sure if I agree, especially like with the chunkier, thicker monsters than the. Well, I mean, I guess then the hit point variation wouldn't be so large because you have a very large amount of hit
Yeah,
dice. So like it's unlikely
yeah,
to vary over much. But
yeah.
again, especially in groups, I think it's defensible. It's a little bit of nitty gritty, a little bit of extra granularity
Yeah,
there, but
that's what it is.
I've never
It's
had a problem with it.
Yeah, no, I've run it like that before. I'm just saying. I think it's Fiend Folio probably has the most dubious art. You occasionally, I would say, you occasionally get second edition MCs where just they've got some drunk off the street to do the art, and it's bad.
The
It's also
intern, they're like, yeah.
you get some interesting stuff like the first edition of the Monstrous Manual has a variety of art in it. And then they're reprinting it. And they're like, let's get Tony D. Tillotson to do it because people really like him, and it means we can get rid of all the bad art from 1989 that we had to use.
Oh, I
Um,
remember. Yeah,
yeah,
the you did all the beholder. You redid all the beholders. I
yeah,
think they suck. I think
yeah,
they look awful. Sorry, Tony. Like I love
yeah.
Planescape art, but that's terrible.
I think
Uh,
his Monstrous Manual is controversial. I think because of that, because it's something where capturing the vibe of a particular place or set of places that people really identify with you is one thing.
yeah,
Drawing a kobold or a beholder is kind of a different thing. People have so many
when
ideas about that.
the vibe
Yeah.
of the actual like the of
Mm.
D&D is definitely not that. Yeah, it feels a bit
It's already been set.
incongruous. That's right.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's like my one. I think my big stumbling block. Well, it's not really a stumbling block. It's just like I wish I could save several minutes. I guess I could just do it all
Mm.
myself beforehand, and then have like a table that I reference every single time. That's probably the way to do it. I
Yeah.
have to invest how long? 8 hours to go through
Yeah.
every single entry in the monster manual, go through like the D&D XP table. 4 hours. I could probably do it in 4 hours. You go through every single,
Yeah.
you manually calculate the XP formula, you put them all in an Excel spreadsheet, and then you fill in
Mm.
automatically, put the automation in
Mm.
there, fill in the hit points, and then it spits out
Someone
amount of
will have
XP.
done it. So actually, what you do is you Google it and you find someone who has done it.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Thaco is usually going to be reasonably easy, but the one problem with one is obviously knowing your tables, and some
Yeah,
people really know their tables and some people don't. So
I have
in
a
that sense,
digital
Thaco,
what do
yeah,
you call that? Digital
calculator.
like a No, not a
algorithm.
digital calculator. It's just a cheat sheet, basically. I
Mm.
call it a table dumping ground. So I navigate there if I need a table, and then the first thing there's actually in there is a table which is from the Beholder, which contains all of the pages that contain
Mm-hmm.
the pages of the DMG and the PHB, and then the tables that are listed there. So
Mm.
well, this is more for shits and giggles. So I always instantly have saving throws.
Mm.
What do you call it? Saving throws and to hit numbers and that sort of stuff is always all
So
in there.
I keep a second edition.
Naked picture
Um,
of my
yeah,
grandmother,
of yeah, yeah, Lorraine Williams, your grandma.
of Tony
Um,
Blair. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
A rare
No,
holographic foil.
a cardboard 3-panel DM screen,
Yeah.
which was bundled with the infamous Trouble at Tragedor, and I gathered copies of all the tables, things like light, how far light goes on what type and for how long a light lasts, that kind of thing.
I've
Every
heard
other
Owen
table,
that
yeah.
I've heard Owen that the Trouble at Tragedor was a really bad adventure. It was a real Tragedor when that
Yeah,
was
it caused
bundled in there.
it caused a lot of trouble, at least.
It's a real tragedy for sure. Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
Please. But yeah, I
No,
get
no.
you. I get you. Like my
So yeah, I
grand.
was just saying,
Yeah,
I've gathered
smells are
and
the same, right? Yeah.
I've printed that sheet out. So I have, and when I'm playing in person, playing AD&D, I put up that screen behind my normal screen, and I put up the random sheet, and then I have all the tables visually in front of me. So yeah, no,
Okay.
it's necessary. The goblin,
Wait. Before you,
the goblin.
Oh no,
Yes.
you're going to read the goblin now. I had a second, maybe the second part
Yeah.
of the question. If we can do
Mm-hmm.
another
Yeah, yeah.
pivot, an ADHD infused pivot.
The ADHD
You
Monster
actually
Manual.
said you promised in your answer that you would also answer the second part of the question, which is to say, well, do you need more than this one monster manual, and if so, why?
Mm-hmm.
Answer me
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I think to play D&D, Greyhawk D&D in certainly in 1977, I to play in the setting. I mean, um, you do not need anything else because you have a lot of fun in one book. Now, what you could say is what happens when you've played it for a bunch. This, by the way, anticipates some of the questions we had. A couple of the
Exactly.
questions went in this direction. But when you played it a bunch and you know what you're doing and you've run Goblin and Jamie, I did see your question mentioned clay golems on the same page. When you've played your clay golems to death and you've had a trillion goblin tribes, and you know what you're doing and you want to do things slightly different, you have a few options: creating new monsters, reskinning monsters. But at that point, you might well have purpose for something else. There's also the case if you're running a specific setting. I literally have the Donwood books behind here, behind my computer. Yeah, use the monster book for that. But we're talking about if you're playing default AD&D, vanilla AD&D, I think you could play for a very long time with the monster manual without ever feeling it stale. What you might begin to pick up is you start thinking, oh, I wouldn't mind if I could do something like this, or like I'm doing, I'm doing. We're attacking hell, and it'd be cool to have a few more monster types that fit this particular
Niche.
level of hell. Yeah,
Yes.
and so you start to explore things. So it's not. I don't believe that anyone when they're like, I've been playing it. I've played it for 3 sessions, but I've just got really bored of the monsters. I have literally read people say stuff like that. I kind of assume most of the time they're lying. It's not really that they're playing at all. But you occasionally run into this sense of people who have a desire for the new from almost day one, and there's something unhealthy there because you're not mastering the system, you're not understanding why stuff works, and you're not going to enjoy the new stuff you get either. You're always going to find the grass is not greener. So
It's
I think
just
once you've thoroughly
ADHD.
been in the
Yes.
past, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No, pretty much
Dopamine
exactly. Yeah,
deficiency.
it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a dopamine thing. Yeah. Whereas if you play a lot, yeah, you're going to end up wanting extra supplements for different settings, for different niches, or you're going to have your own ideas for stuff. Like even for my Oriented Adventures campaign,
Right.
there's a particular kind of folklore ghost. Well, so multiple things though. I already have the monster manuals, but then I was like, oh,
Yeah.
there's a folklore ghost who isn't in any of these, and it's almost more of a puzzle encounter. Though you need stats, but it's more of a puzzle encounter. I was like, I guess I just need to write that,
Oh,
then, don't I?
Okay, you broke up a little bit, but that's okay.
So
Yeah,
you
I
even
mean, in
once you've
my
got the new
Oriental
stuff, if you're
Adventures
playing a lot,
games,
you find new niches. But if you're
yeah,
not playing a
gotcha.
lot, why are you worried about it? Why? Yeah, go for it.
Okay, a little bit of lag
Mm,
there. That's fine. I was going to say
yeah.
that, of course, in my Oriental Adventure games, I don't really use monsters. I just have like
Sorry.
Japanese soldiers with bayonets going like "Oni American," and they run towards you and they try to like
Yeah,
overcharge your position and bayonet you to death.
yeah.
Um,
And
no, I'm sorry.
they're telling you to build a bridge. They're telling you to build a
There,
bridge.
yeah, you
Yep.
have to. Yeah, you go to the Unit 731 research facility. Yeah, yeah. No,
Yeah.
what I was
Yeah.
actually going to say is, uh, yeah, I do think that there's definitely something magical about the first time the party encounters some sort of new unknown creature and doesn't know its abilities yet. That's when
Mm.
everybody goes like, oh shit, right?
Mm.
Oh, we haven't seen this before, what does it do? So um and that's something
Mm.
that's very common to a lot of games, and it makes sense that like as you keep playing, at some point you've exhausted all of your resources, and of course, yeah, you still want
Yeah.
to keep that variety in there. But there is something very interesting about players knowing about certain monsters and but then dreading them, right? Because they may have only heard of them from
Mm.
another game, for like, oh shit, we encountered a Rakshasa,
Mm.
fuck, right? Like this idea of like certain monsters building up kind of like a sort of ominous legend. You haven't really encountered them. You might not quite know what they do, but other D&D players have
Mm.
like talked about them or maybe have died to them. So there is like a sort
Yeah.
of advantage to people knowing certain monsters exist, and I think you kind of need that.
Yeah. I think so.
What do you call that?
This is
That
just an opportunity
interaction.
to remind my players who are listening that in one game I run, my players have met a Rakshasa in disguise. Just to put it out there, if you're a player listening, it might be in your game. It might not be. You don't know.
I remember,
So yeah.
yeah, in one of my games too. They already encountered him once, the Rakshasa, and he wiped the floor with them, and I think he killed all of
Mm.
their retainers. So they, at some point, they were
Mm.
like, "All right, let's screw this clown up. We're gonna, you get yourself like a couple of quarrels of like blessed crossbow bolts and all that stuff." So they're like,
Mm.
all right, we're gonna give him Mr. Tiger Face a bloody nose, and then he successfully used like an illusion to conjure up some sort of other monster, and I think it may have actually been the
Mm.
Rakshasa, and then they fired all of the they expended all of their blessed bolts on that thing, right? And then he was like, ah, right. So they basically went
Fell
back
for it
with
again.
yeah, yeah, they fell for it again. They went back with a bloody nose. The Rakshasa did not pursue. They had done a couple of points of damage, so it was kind of like, all right, yeah, you better run, right? But
Yeah.
again, yeah, Rakshasa, like it's really bad news if you run into that at certain levels. So yeah, a very good monster.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think it's important not. Yeah. So one, the idea that you live in a world full of monsters you know about, not worrying too much about player meta knowledge. It's part of that discussion, and seeing it as a
Yeah.
merit that your players kind of know some stuff. I would say it's tough. You don't want to overvalue novelty. Like, oh wow, hopefully we meet some cool new monsters today, as if it was its own value. But the idea that there might be a soupçon of something new that you haven't dealt with before, a different kind of problem, a different kind of environment,
Well,
is fun. It's obviously part of what we enjoy in other games, and so a bit of it is good. And yeah, so in that sense, when you've exhausted the original resource, you might want to get something else. I
I
agree.
mean, ultimately, of course, you're going there to be like being surprised and encountering something that you doing something you haven't done before
Mhm.
is part of the fun, of course.
Mm,
So
yeah.
yeah, but I agree with that. If it's just nothing but like, wow, you don't know what this is, right? Well, there may be games that work like that, and they'll be really fun. But I think definitely D&D. I'm pressing X on that one. I would say most
Yeah.
D&D campaigns don't work like that and are absolutely fine. So yeah,
Yeah. I think it's also that in games where you meet a new enemy and you have to learn what it's like, part of the point is that it's either roguelike-ish that you have to keep running through that monster or boss or whatever till you beat it,
Yes.
or you're going to encounter it again later. So it's not usually basically no one is playing any combat heavy video game basically where every single monster is unique and they never encounter anything twice. And none of it matters in that sense. There's always some sense in which you're trying to become excellent. And D&D is like that in some ways, that you're trying to improve player skill. And that includes being able to identify things. Like when my player's like, okay, there's a mold there. Which mold is it? I'm trying to remember which molds react to heat and which ones react to cold and which way around that is. Because if it's this one, and I actually like that. I don't see that as metagaming. I see that as a player trying to
That's
become good
good.
at navigating
Yeah,
the world.
I agree with that. And the opposite is, I believe it was Geoffrey McKinney who made an adventure. He made good adventures too, by the way. Don't get me wrong. I'm not knocking the guy, but he made one adventure wasn't very good. It was Isle of the Unknown, and on the Isle of the Unknown, which was like an island-based hex crawl, you encountered these creatures which were like they were uh, just a type of like monster. They were all randomly generated and they all had random abilities. But the result of that is like even their appearance, right, was like from a table. So there was no visual clue how dangerous the creature actually was. You couldn't tell. Like it could be like a weird sort of like multicolored mollusk, and it would have like a disintegration cone breath weapon or something like that. Like ridiculous. I mean, I tell you that now. If you encounter it once, you're like, what the fuck? Like that's very cool. But if that happens every single time, then yeah,
Every
you
encounter.
literally don't know. Yeah, you don't know. You cannot possibly estimate their strength. You have to, and everything becomes like this sort of like I guess a custom job where you're like, geez, I don't know about this. Too much
Yeah.
uncertainty is not a good thing either, right? You having
No.
encounters with where you know what's going to happen is definitely a feature, not a bug.
Yeah, and
I added. Oh, go ahead.
no, I was going to say, I think in terms of player excellence, I was going to give my movie reference for player excellence is
Yeah,
the Matrix. Naturally, it's the Matrix. He's
it's the
beginning to believe,
Matrix.
and of course, yeah, indeed, he's beginning to believe. And the point is that you need to have this moment where the player's like, I can deal with this. I know what I'm doing. That is fun for everyone, including the DM. And if you're like, oh no, nothing matters. You're never going to meet this again. Ooh, look, it's a pony, but the pony is a demon. Okay, that's cool. Are we gonna have to deal with that again? Nope, never. And the mollusk has a disintegration rate. Okay, we're gonna deal with that again? Nope, never. If everything is random, nothing is random functionally. There's no novelty because the novelty is dead and flat.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's right. There was a question by I don't know if we can. We'll jump a little bit ahead and behind. We'll blink back and forth, right? Like the blink dog,
Yeah.
which is from the Monster Manual.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, topical. That's right, a reference. So, there was a question by was it by Jeff A? That like what monster would you add to the Monster Manual?
I think
Which
Jeff
one is
asked,
missing?
what would you add? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. What would you add? Well, what would you add? What would you want in?
I'd put the Tarrasque in Monster Manual 1. Yeah, that's right. It needs I love that idea of just having a monster that's at the top of the food chain, right? That you just say, okay, there's only one of these, and it's the worst fucking thing ever. Now, the Monster Manual already has like I believe definitely demon princes. It doesn't. Yeah, it also has a couple of devils, I believe, like Asmodeus and that sort of stuff. Yeah. So so it has these
And it has storm giants.
Those are not unique.
No,
But
not
they're very
unique.
strong.
No.
Yeah, or liches or something like that. Yeah, it has a few like the guys at the top of
Vampire.
the yeah. Vampire's more mid-range, mid-range sort of like final boss monster, but also very strong. Yeah, no, it has them right, but the kind of like somehow I like that idea of just having like a definitive, you know, guy at the top of the food chain where you're like, all right, this is the guy, this is the legendary fuck you monster that no one can kill. There's only one of them. Here you go. And so I would add the Tarrasque.
Yeah. I think that's a good answer because it's so specific. Like, oh, what is a unique thing or function unique thing at the top of the food chain? I feel like there is stuff. I'd have to go and look at whatever was the most used stuff I use that's not in the Monster Manual, because there are a few that I've definitely been like, oh yeah, I use that a lot, but it's not in the MM. But I feel like there are some I like there are some other humanoid-ish things that I really like that aren't MM. So veggie pygmies. I don't remember if myconids are. Lakatha. You know, like what I mean is there's a space for me for a variety of non-evil humanoids somewhere in there, probably that I could feel like I could add in and I'd benefit from, just because they are flexible and you can make adventures around them. You know, you can have. I need to double check, literally go and double check all the contents to make sure what's in and what's not. But without being able to remember off
Locathah
the top
were
of my
like
head.
a type of like, wasn't that like it's just a type of fish person, right?
Yeah, I'm giving that
Yeah.
as an example. But stuff from like, oh, I like using this stuff. I think there is space for a wider variety of demi-human / humanoids,
Even
because so
more.
much. Yeah.
Oh
I think so.
man, I
Yeah.
ah, I have to really think about that. Like, I've used most of the stuff from the Monster Manual just because I run a lot of like published adventures,
Mm,
right? So you come across them.
mm.
But
Oh
I'm
yeah,
trying to go,
yeah. Same. Yeah.
when I go into like the further Monster Manuals, um, there's not that much there, at least for like the basic humanoids. I don't think we, as we would say in Dutch, the huistuin and keuken humanoids, right, the house, garden, and kitchen variety monstrous humanoids, the orcs and that sort
Mm,
of stuff. I
mm.
don't really. I don't need I don't need a new humanoid that has 3 hit dice plus 2 hit points, right? Like there, I think I'm kind of like settled. I think Flynn's are very a kind of a questionable addition, or Svarts. You would just use
I like
Svarts. That's like
smarts.
a weirdo choice. Yeah, like oh look, boys, humanoids, and then it's
Yeah,
Svarts. Then
yeah.
something weird is
I've used
going on.
smarts.
You could still do it, of
Yeah,
course.
yeah.
Uh,
No,
but
I would say I literally am thinking more like I like a fungal humanoid, veggie pygmies, myconids,
yeah, yeah.
and aquatic humanoids, Lakatha, Sargin. Are Sargin original MM or
Saugin
are they FF?
are 1E though. Sorry,
Yeah,
they're MM Saugin.
yeah, they are, yeah.
Is it South?
Lakatha, Sahagin. I actually often say Sahagin, but I hear people say Sargin.
And it is Ilamzo Brangivore or something like that.
Yeah.
The stuff that they pluck.
Elasma
Yeah,
Elasma Broncovore.
Elasmo Brangivore. Yeah,
Yeah.
Gesundheit. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. I think
Uh,
that's isn't that Hungarian for Gabba hasn't paid us
for
our
borscht.
sponsorship this
Yeah,
month.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. That's but no, but so Saugen are already there. Like I feel that would maybe be the uh, kind of like
hmm.
with Monster Manual 2. That's kind of what it's trying to do, right? The first one has to cover just like an
Yeah.
immense amount of ground, and it just
Yeah.
creates it. And then if you would take a campaign from like a general exploration campaign where you do all of that stuff to a more focused campaign where you're like, okay, we're going to do the Underdark for, I don't know, 10
Mm.
levels, right? Then you're going to run out of like stuff really quickly. Then it's like, okay, we need extra stuff. We need
Yeah.
deeper, more dungeony levels with even more darker and weird monsters in there, and then you get to that. Um, but yeah, just in terms of like just a general range, uh, oof, what's another? What is it? The Norkers. Have you ever used
Mm.
Norkers?
Yes. Once in my Greyhawk game, they inhabit a ruined elven monastery near the Temple of Elemental Evil, and the Temple is trying to recruit them. My players are
Right.
currently working out whether or not they can disrupt that. Also, there is like a crashed elven spelljammer in there, like as in it was like obviously in the yeah. And so my players want to go back there. I use them for that because I was like, what would be, given they do fight and deal with the other kinds of monsters via the temple via stuff, what would be another chaotic humanoid in this case who the temple might want to recruit, was my question. So I was like,
Right.
I'll use them. Yeah.
You were already through
So
the orcs, the goblins, the kobolds, the gnolls, the bugbears, the ogres, the
well,
flinns.
my players my players have encountered them and do encounter them, you know, because
True,
they're fighting the
true.
temple. Yeah,
With
but
Norkers,
my players by the
go
way
ahead.
have I haven't told the story on Discord. In the places we frequent, I've been meaning to. They have functionally accidentally dropped into the third level of the temple. They're like a third to fifth level party. There's 2 high
Easy.
level of them. Yeah, whoa. No, but they have kind of through a degree of genuine player skill plus just sheer bravura and luck, managed to they went into the secret passage, which is how they got down there. The illusionist was like, I think that basilisk might be an illusion. It turned one of their guys to stone, illusionary stone, not real stone. But I was like, okay, well, I'll allow, I'll make it. I'll make an intelligence check for you, and if you succeed, you can have a spell save. And he got both the int save and the spell save. So I was like, yeah, you can tell your friends it's an illusion because you're an illusionist. You think it's an illusion. Fair enough. We should talk about illusions one day, not today. But then so they got rid of the basilisk. They then left before the half-orc assassin came out. But next time she was there and waiting, they opened up. She went invisible as they cast spells and wands to take her out, and so they captured her. She's like 7/7 half-orc fighter assassin or fighter assassin or something. Then they left as the wizard to the south was about to come out, and so they just left, and so they weren't there. And then they came back, and though they retreated from him after he'd retreated from them, they survived that too. You're like, this is incredible luck, but also there's enough skill in there for preparing the right stuff that they are overperforming. They're likely to hit a point where they're like, oh wait, we just lost 2 characters because this is too
biting
dangerous.
off more than you can chew.
Yeah.
But I do like that element of it.
Yeah.
Where you can
that
you can kind of determine your
yeah
own risk, right? So it's
yeah
always cool if you have the option where you're like, okay, well, the math may not be with me, so we should be
yeah
more careful and we should only
and of
engage in
course,
favorable circumstances. And yeah,
as DM, of course, they don't realize this because they did determine depth. They now know they're well below the temple, so that might make them, because they got the dwarf to check. But I was like, okay, I can't say to them, by the way, as in this is an experienced group, they're good at the game. I don't want to say to them, you should really just be pootling around the top level. You're not on the top level. They were like, oh, maybe this is just a secret area right below ground level, and hence why determining the depth will help them. But you're like, okay, so you're pretty good at this, and you're trying to ask the right questions, and I don't want to patronize you by being like, with my kids, if my kids got into that situation with this new campaign, I'd be like, by the way, you think this is too dangerous for you? I'd happily say that to a 6-year-old, frankly, playing like kids D&D.
well, I mean, a 6-year-old, sure.
Yeah. But the point is, these are not that. So I'm like, man, they just might. If the wizard and the assassin had hit them together, it would have been. It might not have been a TPK, but it could have been very close, if not that. And yeah, so it is something where I am anxious about it, but I'm like, hey, gotta let them learn their own lessons, I guess. Yeah. So yeah, we answered what we had, and let's talk about the goblin. We've talked about talking about the goblin for a while. Let's talk about the goblin. So
all right.
And I say this because I think it'd be interesting just to think about. Let's take one sample thing of what potential there is in a very ordinary entry, which everyone thinks they know. I think that's a relevant question because people are like, oh, well, I don't want just goblins. I've got to reskin them to be like froglins. Froglins are actually Gripply, I have, but yeah, they'll be like, oh yeah, we need to reskin them. They have a number appearing of 40 to 400, and they're in their layer 40% of the time. They have treasure types, individuals K, layer C, 1d6 plus 1 hit points, 6-inch move, so they're not actually very quick. AC 6, number of attacks 1, etc., etc. They are lawful evil in early editions because they are organized.
I would look at the because most of these stats are going to be very similar, right? I would look at like the paragraphs for especially like their nature, right?
Yeah.
But also the I would look at organization if they're allied with certain other creatures, because then you can you can kind of build an order of battle.
Yeah.
I feel these humanoids are the most interesting when and it's kind of like implied they're most interesting when you organize them. So when they're attacked, they should have alarms, order of battle. They should have.
It depends. It slightly depends, doesn't it, on the humanoid? So, as in some humanoids are more or less organized. They can have a
bad order of battle. To be honest, yes, it's true. But you should treat them as like I feel they would work better if you use them as like an organized force that will.
Agree.
Attempt to take you out versus like, okay, you encounter 1d6 of them. and 1d6 more, and here we go. You guessed it, 3d6, and then they're all dead. Instead of, it's more like a more active environment where if you have to penetrate, and if you're not stealthy enough, you're going to very quickly face increasing numbers of resistance, and maybe they'll have a backup entrance and like all that stuff, right? That makes them interesting.
Yeah. Well, I think, let's find out. They've got a tribal society, the strongest among the rest, but presumably allowing fealty to the Goblin King. So they are ordered, but they're lawful evil. They're lawful evil with a degree of might makes right, with strength. They might be related to kobolds, and they like dwelling in dismal surroundings, tending to inhabit caves and similar underground places in preference to any habitation above ground. They hate full daylight, attack at -1. So their bases are going to be underground. They're going to be in tunnels and caves. And they have infravision, so they're going to be dark. And so immediately you're raising questions. This is a low-level monster. There's an implication of things like light may be a problem, light may be an obstacle you can... And of course, that might be something the goblins know. They are average intelligence tending to low, so they may realize that surface dwellers need light, and they do not. For every 40 goblins, there'll be a leader. 4 assistants who are equal to orcs, and then same with a larger group. And then you get percentages of their allies and what they might do. They might be mounted on 25% chance that some are mounted on huge wolves. And there might also be lots more huge wolves. So ecologically, those wolves presumably don't all live deep underground. They live nearer the surface, don't they? Because they've got to go out to hunt, I guess.
Well, that too. But I was also thinking, this was another thing that I reflected on when I think I checked out some 3rd edition adventure. There's a reason, I guess, why the power of these creatures is so sort of like delineated. And if they have something like a shaman or maybe maybe somebody with wizard or cleric capabilities, it's usually described in that entry. And it's a very bad idea or in general, it's a bad idea to sort of like expand them much beyond that. It has to do with predictability also. I think it's the rainbow colored mollusk idea again, where if you, in this 3rd edition adventure, you had like a bugbear ranger and a bugbear monk, right? But the PCs just see like, oh, you see a bugbear, and then you suddenly remove their ability to sort of get a kind of an idea of like how strong bugbears are. It's like no, bugbears can now be level 7 monks or whatever the hell, right? Anyone can be anything. Whereas here it's nicely delineated, right? You've got a few. This is the average guy. These are the tough guys, and then these are the very tough guys. And that's kind of like
there's the leader and assistant. The leader and assistants are orcs. The step up is to hobgoblins. So sub chief and guards are hobgoblins, and a goblin chief and his bodyguards fight as gnolls, for instance.
Yeah, fighting as. So they're literally just saying, just use these stats for them. We already have them. Don't bother advancing their hit dice or whatever. No, just use these stats for them. Done. They look like goblins, though. Yeah.
And that is a, if you like, that is a reskinning. But yes, it's just using. You're not meant to use everything else, of course, from those entries. It's more about the raw stats at the top.
Sure.
And it's saying that in the wild they may have a bunch of. If they're patrolling, they may have maybe riding wolves, and accompanied by unridden wolves. In their base, there is a separate, there is a distinct chance in a base of having huge wolves 60% of the time. And they may also have 2d6 bugbears. So we have like a whole ecology there of...
this paragraph is a dungeon, essentially.
Yeah. It's both. It's both overground. Yeah. What do you think about the fact that the de minimis surface counter is allegedly 40 goblins? Just to pass that by you. What I mean is, off this entry, the 40 to 400 is not in the layer because that's separated. If you look logically, a goblin layer will be protected. So they're distinct entries. So presumably you don't often... I would say when I'm running overland encounters, I was about to say something that isn't true. When I run overland encounters, I will roll whatever that number is, 40 to 400 or whatever, if it's overland, because I do see the overland encounter as distinct from the dungeon. But presumably you would not say that designing for goblins always means having minimum 40 of them.
You can... if you're going to like look at like, well, this is a, I mean, no, of course not. You can say, well, oh, this is a ruined tower, and like whatever 12, basically 12 goblins have taken up roost here. That's fine. You can do that.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
there's no problem with that. I think it's more like this number of appearing is just this allows you to like uh, sort of unlock the power of like very large numbers and statistics. So just you kind of set like guidelines. They're going to be encountered in this bandwidth, and it makes sense that like for overland travel or whatever, yeah, of course you encounter. These are tribes of like humanoids. It's not just going to be like 6 of them. No, they're saying like this is approximately the size of like whatever a tribe of goblins. Like, okay, that's reasonable. And less than that, then probably it breaks up or something terrible has happened. But yeah, you can encounter a single solitary goblin. That's fine, of course.
Yeah, yeah. So thinking about we should actually, before coming back to their possibilities, just look at what they're armed with. They also they do speak certain languages. They are good miners, so they're able to note new or unusual construction. They hate gnomes and dwarves. So they might have a mine. That might be a thing that you actually want to deal with them in terms of a layer. Their layer might be a valuable mine.
Exactly. Or if they are in a ruin, that they'll maybe expand it with like extra tunnels. That's all fine. That's good.
Yeah. Classic weapons: short swords and military picks, and morning stars for the front line, spears for the second line. 40% of the time, spears.
Yeah, no bows.
And then slings.
Yeah, exactly.
No. Now that's interesting because later I've read plenty of adventures with goblins with bows. I was recently played an adventure with goblin with bows, which is dangerous. Rough too. But yeah, they have basic weapons, many of which you could see as appropriate in the tunnel, like the military pick and the spear, particularly. And so they're fairly simple, but they can use ranged weapons, and they can use a second rank if you're using weapon lengths with spears. So yeah, there's some degree of organization and there's some degree of their upper limit. They are not, on the other hand, using advanced construction of weapons, crossbows, even normal bows. They are not using pole arms. I know they're small creatures, so they can't really. But you get the idea. You get a sense of what they're likely to do and how they're likely to fight, and what your options are. And similarly, you know what their allies are: bugbears and wolves. So I guess the bugbears are we in later terms we think of them as goblinoids, don't we? They are big hairy silent goblins or cousins of goblins. I guess here that's not quite in view, but they are a sort of a species that can coexist and maybe benefits from the larger body of mooks to kind of hide amongst and to do their nefarious things. And the wolves get fed by. That's their relationship, isn't it? And ridden by in return. So yeah, I think you've got a layer, you've got an overland encounter, and you have a bit of variety. Because that's one thing is you don't actually
bugbears, by the way, literally described as hairy giant goblins. So yeah, this is some fucked up offshoot. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But that's like a nasty little surprise to spring on the players, right? Because you know, goblins would be like large groups. You're taking out patrols or sentries. You're moving ahead, and then suddenly you get bushwhacked by this clump of like huge, hairy, fucked up goblins that hit really hard. That's kind of it's like a little extra thing, like they're shock troops essentially. Yeah.
It is that there's a recognition that it is.
Oh, I think I lost you for a second. You're gonna have to repeat what you said.
Am I back? Yeah, I said no.
You
probably
now.
hadn't missed. You probably hadn't missed much. I was saying, even here we do see that there is. Well, you're meant to have variety in the layer. You're not meant to, and by layer I don't mean a one-room layer. I mean like when you're doing a base, like it's a goblin tribe's base. There's meant to be variety. It's not meant to be. There are 20 rooms, each with 20 goblins in it. You fight 20 goblins in each of those rooms, and you get the exactly generated treasure that you're allowed to have. It is that you're meant to be like, oh, here's like I remember making a orc layer led by a beholder Gorth with like, and the toilet, the kind of refuse area had Notchig in it. As a very simple, small, like 10 room, it might be 15 room, like just above a layer, just below a proper dungeon. And yeah, there's just a bit of variety. And the orcs had guard posts, and so there's some intelligent stuff. But obviously, if you were dealing with the Otchug, that wasn't intelligent in the same way. Yeah, I'd say as they're low intelligence, you don't expect the goblins to be super organized and with like roving squads of guards to challenge you. You're more likely to have sentries who might fall asleep, and so you can sneak past, or you can whatever. And you're more likely to have a responsive thing where just there's a bit of everyone clangs the pans and everyone charges. But maybe the bugbears who are smarter might well think, maybe we'll do something smart here. And so there's a lot there. There's a lot of options there, and they like mines. So maybe they're in a gold mine, or maybe they're in the cellars of a ruined castle, but they've made their own constructions as well. There's ideas for what kind of layer they could have. Yeah.
Oh, and what do we have on the question list?
Questions, yeah. The question is, it was, what is wrong with Prince, and why do you allow? No, I won't ask that question. That's harsh. I'm not sure why they asked that.
That's very rude, Jeffy.
Yeah,
why would you ask? Yeah, you're banished.
But my point there was, off the most basic monster in the book, the goblin, you've got a lot of things that can happen, and a lot of different encounters, lots of different layers. That was my point there. And I think that shows the value here, that you do not need to have. That was just to clarify. You do not need to have trillions of goblin types, because the goblin is quite interesting, is what I was saying.
Well,
yeah.
Yeah, sure. Anyway, the questions.
Yeah. The next question. Jeff says, favorite piece of art in the Monster Manual. Do you have a favorite piece?
Ooh, I gotta think. The Rakshasa, probably.
Yeah, I do like.
Show it off. I want to see it.
I'm not. I don't know the page reference like that.
It's on with the R. Rakshasa.
Yeah, that's not how.
Has is great
how
too.
Page numbers. It's not how page numbers work. I actually quite like the goblin.
I quite like the goblin. Okay,
I'm happy to go to Rakshasa.
It's real convenient.
There is also. Oh, what about the elves? It's a Trampier piece. The elves.
It's page 81, by the way, for that guy.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, it just rules.
We'll have a look. I will see if I can find the right page. In the way the PDF is displaying. Yeah.
Rakshasa, Ramor has Rock, even Rhinoceros. They're all hits. It's 2 pages full.
The Rock is everywhere. He's in all these movies. He's in the Monster Manual.
Yeah, that's right. We wouldn't have thought that, but he was in the Monster Manual.
Yeah. Under the entry Samoan,
I feel the monsters without
isn't
art
appropriate anymore.
Kind of like they're kind of like left behind, like any monster that doesn't have an art entry is just forgotten.
A forgotten realm, tracker. If you will.
81. Yes. Zoom in.
Yeah.
Zoom. Yes. Enhance. Magnify.
I don't know if I can zoom in.
Owen. Enhance. Enhance. Damn you.
I don't know if I can enhance. I'm trying to get there. It's getting
engage. Tea Earl Grey hot. Come on. Yeah, we're almost there. Here we go. Yeah. Okay. Almost.
No, I it keeps moving. What's happening? Q. Has it stopped moving?
Owen has lost control of the scroll. Yes.
There we go.
Okay. Yeah. I see that we're unable to magnify, so therefore everyone just go in your browser. Everyone watching this, press the magnification button or go full screen. The aerial servant.
Yeah.
The Rakshasa, as we see, with a very stylish sort of pipe, usually for the
I do like that one.
Opium. And directly below it, the Ramor has, which just fucking rules.
I will go. I like the goblin. I have to go through everything again. I really like the cover, I should say.
Should be able to call that from memory, Owen. What stands out?
Yeah. Well, look at this little Sylvan.
What about the Ifrit?
No, this Sylvan scene that is like the super amateurish but skilled. The amateur but skilled.
Boo! He's making something up. Hats. He doesn't have an answer. Everyone boo Owen.
I like the goblin. I like the Sylvan scene.
Okay.
I like the Sylvan scene more than I like the elf. The elf is a boring picture. There's the elementals, classic elementals.
Very well. Ifrit.
Some say the best elementals.
The air elementals.
There's the Ifriti. Yeah.
We love them all. Okay.
The air elemental with eyes on it. Hi, I'm an air elemental, but I've got eyes. That'd be
Yeah,
weird, wouldn't it? You'd be like, you see a
fair.
tornado spinning, a mini tornado spins towards you. Oh no, this seems bad. Maybe it's magic. It has human eyes in the middle of it.
Yeah,
What, like spinning around?
and
No, no, they're looking at you.
I do have to say, like even looking at these now, if you compare them with like 2E and their art budget and that sort of the sophistication must have been much higher. But
Mm,
the these things generally have a sort of soul to them that the 2E
yeah,
monsters more or less lack. Uh, so
yeah.
that's pretty
With
cool.
with except with exceptions, with exceptions.
Of course, yeah, there's occasionally cool pieces in there. And I won't lie. Okay,
Yeah.
so next question.
Another question. What was it? What is a turd? What's your least favorite creature?
It's hard to say.
The
Like
Rakshasa.
I don't hate them. Like it's just that the least favorite would just be something that you you know you disdain it. You never use it, right? The
Mm.
jeez, I gotta think. I was almost going to say like that the MM and the MM2 have too many dinosaurs in them. But then I started for Fight On, the upcoming Fight On. I wrote an adventure to try to use as many of them as I could to sort of redeem that part. So that's not
Mm.
going to be it. Uh
By
Monster
the way,
Manual
this piece
1
of
doesn't
beaver
really
art,
have duds, I
this
think.
beaver art is
Monster Manual
great.
2 has duds. What the giant
Yeah.
beaver? That's come on.
No,
That's
the giant beetle. The giant beetle. That's a great piece of art. Look at that in the
the
corner.
okay, well, fair. Well, I would almost say the boring beetle, because
Yeah.
um, there are a few of these monsters that are just they do a lot of damage and they just have high hit dice and an
Oh no,
AC that's
I'm just
tough
talking
to
about the
track.
art. As I'm
I
saying, I like
know,
the art.
I
I'm just
know,
going back to that question. It's nice. Oh, yeah, yeah. No,
but
I think I like the intelligent giant beavers is such a great D&D creation.
yeah,
That is, I love the giant beaver.
it's whimsical. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which one
Um.
is like I don't know, I would say like the flump or something like that in later editions, but in just in the monster manual, an actual entry that I would never use, it's gonna be like one of these redundant dinosaurs. That would be my answer.
Mm, yeah. It's not bad. It's just you don't need it on top of everything else. Yeah. Um. How devastating? Scott asks, how devastating are giant skunks?
Giant skunks.
Giant skunks. Giant
You got
scones.
to pull this thing up. This is
Yeah.
ridiculous. They like my party has a giant skunk as part of like some of the treasure they found in Beastmaker Mountain. But this is total bullshit. So
Mm.
it's under skunk.
What
I will look it up. I will give you a
what's the
page
page
number if
ref?
that helps. Yes,
Yeah, I'm
it
looking
might be
through on
under
PDF.
giant
My book is
skunk, not under.
downstairs.
You got it?
No, I haven't yet. My book
Uh
is
oh.
downstairs, so I'm looking at the Sioux
Oh
monster, the self strangleweed, sturge, squid giant, stag, sprite,
oh well.
spider giant, sphinx.
No, it's under
Sphinxes are
skunk
fun.
giant. It's under skunk giant, page 88. Yes.
Okay, let's go find it.
Yeah, you can. Okay. All right. So the point is,
We'll be there in a moment.
this
Mm-hmm.
this animal is bullshit. Okay, it's total nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
They the only thing that matters is they have some sort of 2 feet wide by 2 feet high by 6 feet long. That's and this is giant, so it's 20 by 20 by 60. Some sort of
Mm-hmm.
deranged cone spray. Um, this is like an attack of my like if you fail your save versus poison, you're blind for 1 to 8 hours, and in any event, so
Nice.
even if you don't make your if you make your save, uh, you have to retreat a full move, and you lose 50% of both your strength and dex because of nausea for 2d4 turns. It's ridiculous. Also, all of your magic, all of your cloth material, including magic garb, failing its saving throw, will rot and become useless. So it can destroy items. It's totally
Nice.
ridiculous. This is bullshit.
It sounds like something to dump on a high level party who's gotten cocky. Like, oh, there's a giant skunk. Okay.
There's certain monsters that are that when you encounter them alone, they're already pretty bad. Like we just had at a lower level party, a mummy, right, which has like this fear
Mm-hmm.
effect that hits the entire party. It's like having a,
Yep.
it's
Yep.
like the enemy can turn undead suddenly, like you're stunned for a couple of rounds. It's really fucked up.
Mm-hmm.
But a mummy itself is kind of manageable because it sort of like whacks
Mm.
away at the party. It's really tough. It does
Yeah.
1d12 damage for each attack. It only has one attack. It's not that
Yeah.
dangerous. But if you combine that with other creatures that like do a ton of damage but are fragile, or you create these sort of like more complex encounters, then it becomes like a fucking nightmare. And I
Yeah.
just see this skunk combined with something that has like a real damage potential is terrible. What a nightmare.
Um, have you ever used the masher? Gabor asks.
The masher, no. This is going to go for this is going to go in the bracket of like the slithering tracker.
Mm. I've used
What about
slithering
you, Owen?
trackers. I've not used masher. I've used the slithering tracker a couple of
The
times.
lurker above.
I've used the lurker above a couple of times. Yeah.
Oh my god.
The deep law. Um, Grutzy would like you to defend the 7 HD dwarf.
Wait, can we go to the 7 HD dwarf? Clearly is some sort of subversive spelling error. But the masher, if we go back to that, is an 8 hit dice fish. Like, well, if you have water, right? I feel so. This
Mm-hmm.
is you could totally use it, right? But if you
Mm-hmm.
have
Yeah, absolutely.
some sort of water related problem, you would go like your mind goes to so many possibilities, right? You go giant octopus, sharks,
Mm.
maybe some sort of dragon turtle if you want to be a huge asshole about it, giant crabs. There's so many great options to go from, and then like I feel like the masher is just like in the back somewhere, like very stuffy, so that
Mm-hmm.
you would do this with like your ninth underwater encounter of like, oh, you guys
Mm.
see it's a natural cave and it's filled with water and twinkling in between all of the rocks. You see what could be like gemstones or gold. Oh shit, we better go in there. We better cast protection from crabs, octopi, and, and sharks. And then you get it. It's like,
And
oh, I
dragon
get attacked by
turtles.
a masher. Like here, another one. Giant clams, right? You can use so many great,
Mm.
so many great options, and then you have like the masher all the
Steamed
way in the back.
clams.
What?
Steamed clams, I said.
Steam, right? Yeah.
Yeah. What is your favorite sleeper hit monster? Ryan asks, and why is it the giant tick?
Ooh, I have used the giant tick. That is a really fucked up monster. It would probably be some sort of giant beetle or bug. Yeah, trying to think back. The shambling mound also I think has
Mm.
real asshole potential. So definitely also a fan.
No, no,
Will support.
I think I've used a full shambling man. Most recently, like as in I think just over a year ago, I used like a mini shambling mound. I just made a small version. No, that I have they have used I have fought a normal shambling man because as my players have because the mini shambling man was on an adventure I designed. The big one was an encounter. They went somewhere and they rolled an encounter and it's a shambling mound. And that was when the wizard was like, I'm going to blow all the spells in this scroll on it. Like, I think he had slow, for instance, and stuff like that. It was just like, this is really bad and could kill us all, which was probably true. Um, but yeah, so I have used a shambling mound. It's
The
good.
the giant ticks to continue on. Yeah, they have so many. They're actually very good. I think that's a good
Mm-hmm.
maybe a great selection. It's like they combine the
Mm-hmm.
properties of like a sturge. They have increased surprise capability, but they drop from the ceiling. And then
Mm-hmm.
to sort of top it off, the creme de la creme is to give them like a disease ability at the end. We encountered quite a bit of them in Beastmaker Mountain, which has a lot of giant insects on the random encounter table. So I am intimately familiar, and that's a fantastic choice actually for like a sort of like
Mm.
very cool monster that you don't often see.
Yeah. Henchman asks most memorable use of a monster. Most memorable use of a monster.
Ooh, I'm gonna the first thing I gravitate towards is actually it's very lame. It was one of my own adventures in Slith Hive. Uh, there's I make use of like a gallop doer and a giant ant lion
Mm.
in a like, very nasty sort of sandwich encounter where it actually starts in like so the players are exploring this cavern, um, and it you know you have this great sort of like mound of sand leading towards the central pit, but then there's boulders sticking from the sand, and one of these boulders is the Gallop Doer, who's definitely going to he's going to like use stone to mud or move earth, or basically he's going to throw them into the pit and then
Mm.
shape the stone over the pit. Otherwise, just like interfere with them horribly while the giant ant lion is eating them up. It's unfortunate that with their high level reconnaissance capabilities, my characters discovered the threat and then
Mm.
tore through them in 2 rounds flat when the
Yeah.
ambush effect was lost. But no, I did really like that. And for the other one, I got to go for that's just one that comes to mind. It's in G3. That's the classic Gary Gygax, you know, the 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 feint, the feint, the jab, and then the overhead right. Okay, so what he does
Mm.
is he does illusionary dragon, right? In one cave, you go, okay, fuck you, Gary. That's fine. Oh, it's just an illusion. Then it's fire drakes, and then you're like, okay, all right, very funny, Gary. And then the real dragon, then he throws that one at you, right? So he kind of sets you up. He establishes a pattern. He's hinting at it, and then bam, he socks you, right and proper. I really like that one. You got one, Owen,
um,
for the
we had
memorable
this. We
monster
had this.
encounter?
Yeah. I don't. I'd have to think through. Yeah. I mean, my players have fought a boulette, so there is that. That was fun. I'd have to think through the whole. Through the whole of the 1EMM and really be like, oh, what is? Because I'd say, in terms of can a great monster be a memorable encounter at any level? Yes. As I'm thinking this, and this is not an MM one, but Deep Carbon Observatory, the cartilaginous giant, like climbing up at
An,
the
an
mine shaft
OSR
after something
encounter.
like
Oh, okay, fine. We'll
that.
have it. Yes, please
Yeah, yeah.
continue.
But yeah, as in, this is actually one of my favorite moments in general. Is this is climbing up? They have knocked this giant out. When they'd encountered it, they managed to knock it out using a draft of dreams or whatever from Anthony Huso module. They knocked it out so it would commune with a power or something, or with like some kind of being. And then they're off doing something else, and then and then it turns up again. But this time, I determined that the power because of a previous encounter that had was with Sendam, the Lord of Madness, who it vomited forth as it climbed up the mine shaft, and that meanwhile causing them to use their last wish from an Efreet to transport everyone, including everyone in the sub party who's separate to us, who's on the magic carpet, transport us to safety. And the Ifrit's like, yeah, fair enough, I'll do that. The Ifrit being malicious. So this is an MM encounter. The Ifrit is being malicious and counts the monster that is on the carpet as part of that wish.
Yes, of course, as everyone. Yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Very
yeah.
good.
So yeah,
Yes.
so that's and I'd say my Rakshasa. I can't say what the memorable Rakshasa encounter was because then my players would know which campaign they had
Oh
with
dear.
Rakshasa in. Mm.
Oh dear. Yes.
This is
Yeah.
this is where the mind games start, Prince. You do it on the channel. You start talking about things that can happen to your players in the games.
Oh,
But yeah, there
okay.
was
You
like
set things up.
yeah,
Yes.
they did not realize they'd spoken to a Rakshasa, and it has affected the campaign ever since.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Another one. Fuck. Just comes to mind. I believe that was in. Was that in Temple of Elemental Evil that you have like some sort of? I don't know if you're still playing through it, by the way, but I'm sure that.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, you guys are okay. Then no
yeah.
spoilers for cool ass monster encounters from Temple of the Elemental Evil.
Those players don't watch this, so it is an
Okay, good.
online campaign. Yeah.
Yeah, there was one where it's like some sort of like you encounter, I believe it's like a mirror, and then like a beautiful woman appears in the mirror and is like, "Yes, heroes, leave behind all of your magical treasure, and I, the goddess, will infuse it with a blessing to improve its enchantment." And then if you do that, but you must leave the room, you must not watch. And then if you do that, then like some some hatch opens and it's just like a couple of jackal-wares just walk in and take all the treasure, and then if you come back like naked waiting it, they pop out, they attack you. It's just like such a fucking asshole, but it's perfect. It's yeah, of course, it's
I
just
mean,
like a
I think
punishment for stupidity. It's perfect.
isn't that something that happens in Rotterdam's nightlife district?
That's more or less just wandering
Yeah,
the streets after 8. It's a fantasy analogy for that. Yeah.
yeah. For
Oh my god.
Jackal wears robbing your stuff.
Jackal.
We had this.
Yeah, that's what we should call them. Yeah, the jackal wares. Yeah, yeah,
Um,
exactly.
uh, we had a couple of questions of this form. One was from Gryzif, who also asked about creating new monsters, which we have answered. Also,
Creating.
John,
No, 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 no. What was his question? We
his question. No, his question was when should. One of his questions, which we have discussed, was when should you create new monsters, which we have
I
discussed. You can answer it more if you
yeah,
want.
a little bit. I guess. I mean, if you have like you have all the creative energy to burn, I would say, you know what, get it out of your system. Do one dungeon, do nothing but new monsters. Who cares? But in
Mm,
general, I would say, you know, you kind of benefit from having a roster and then
mm,
gradually expanding it over time. And occasionally, again, you throw
mm,
curveballs. You shake things up, but it shouldn't just be totally random dissonant shit all the time. There's
mm.
like the fact that there is an order to it, right? And that there's a sort of like uh, uh it, there's kind of like a structure to an implied ecology,
Yeah.
even a supernatural one that's like totally fantastical. But that's a feature, not a bug, right? So
Mm,
um yeah, I would say do it like that. But yeah, there's always like room, depending on like how much how much creative juices you have to burn on that stuff, like whatever. Supplement
I'd say
the tables with one or two of your own. Who cares?
I certainly I occasionally create new monsters, and but not super often. I'd say
Yeah.
in recent examples where I have created new monsters, like outright created new monsters, would be. In fact, as I say, it's pretty rare. The particular ghost in this one encounter, in this one hex, which is like there's a ghost that keeps popping out of the well and screaming, and everyone's like, "Why is there a ghost popping out of the well and screaming?" And there's a mystery the players can investigate, basically. And that was something where I was like, "Okay, there's no this. This is not something that is statted. It's probably useful to have some stats in case players end up being able to go ethereal, stuff like that." So I did that, but that was for a very specific case where I wanted to adapt the folklore. Other cases, it's adaptation. So cutting a shambling mound in half and having a mini shambling mound, like half the stats essentially. I did that. Or occasionally with humans and humanoids, I made a devil cult hideout for really skeezy hideout for this devil cult, and they're all humans, or there was a spined devil. But the humans, a couple of them were leveled, or many of them were leveled, and I gave them one type of them a unique weapon. I was like, oh yeah, they can have like devilishly blessed weapons of a particular kind, like chains that like burn when they're used to catch people when they burn. So that was an adaptation where I was like, they will have a special item. But I don't
Uh,
often create. I don't often create new monsters. I do occasionally, just not often.
yeah, I would almost say. I mean, obvious for Slith Hive, I restricted myself to I think like 10 unique creatures or something like that, and even that was. Oh, I had no problem getting to that 10. I actually had to hold back a little bit, but there was also like I was uh eh,
Mm,
I began with an idea, and I could not have done it with any monster that was
mm,
published within the library of like
mm,
old school D&D at the time. So then I
mm,
was like, oh yeah, no, this is clearly a
mm.
great opportunity for like a
Yeah.
custom uh,
Mm,
uh, encounter. But my last adventure, which I hope will be coming out soon, I've actually just I've done nothing but use monsters from I think it's
mm.
MM1, MM2, and there's a few Dragon Magazine articles I think that
Yeah.
made their way in
I
there.
I made a dungeon which had lots of FF and MM2 monsters, so it wasn't new
Yeah,
monsters, but it was like I will find an excuse to use. Oh, and
uh,
that was the job. I wanted to design it in that way. So
Yeah,
yeah.
making a dungeon, it's almost like you're. I don't want to be too much. I don't want to use this analogy too strongly, but it's almost like making like a video game level. I don't mean in the sense that it like a lot of video games they make no attempt to like make any sense. So it's not like that
Mm,
necessarily. You can actually, sometimes you begin with a real idea, like
mm,
a a tower, a dungeon that's based on like a tower should sort of have like tower-like attributes. It should feel like
mm,
you're exploring
mm.
some ruined tower, right? It shouldn't just be a bunch of like
Yeah.
boxes and uh, just random shit, because it makes it better. But um, I guess when you're making like a video game level, like very often, yeah, I mean, there's so many ways to like challenge the players with the sort of tools already at your disposal. I feel it's really nice to have to use just like this tool set and think of all the interesting stuff you could do with that. It's very fun too. So uh, it,
Mm.
it, I mean, these are two approaches that both have like merit and can be combined,
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah, yeah, no, definitely. I would say the actual most recent adaptation, not strictly creation, the way I created the D&D stats was my players had ended. I've mentioned this story in campaign catch-up stuff.
Yeah.
They'd ended up in a dark Fey demi-plane, the Gloaming, and to get out, they'd finally got to the point where they're allowed to exit, but they had to fight a set of champions sent by this dark archfey, using a lot of stuff from Planescape Appendix MC2. MC Appendix 2, sorry,
There's one
using
really good
Eladrin.
monster in there.
That was really fun. Yeah,
There's
yeah,
deserves a shout out. I don't know if you the Dark Beaver, I think it's called.
yeah,
That's a
yeah.
that's a good one.
No, I was using Eladrin and Leomar. I was using the lesser Eladrin and Leomar, and I also used like a Treant. And the spellcaster did a imp phantasmal force, and created. I think it's in Phantasmal Force, and basically summoned a bunch of, because the models were literally on the side, a squad of the Sky Dwarves from Age of Sigmar, and one of the players was like, "What? Like that must be fake, right?" And then they didn't really press that any further. So and he was like, "Anyway, I attack them." So it's like, "Okay, you're accepting they're real. That sounds good to me." But yeah, it was a funny one that, like, yeah, I was like, I just to adapt them, I should say, I went and opened the relevant codex, the battle tome. I was like, okay, so they fire like lots of small attacks. You can save against each of these small attacks to take like 1 hit point of damage, that kind of thing. So yeah, that was the case where I adapted it on the fly. And at the end, I was like, by the way, that was an illusion. You idiots, you morons. Like, yeah. So yeah, I think that was a rare case, but yeah, I yeah, will adapt stuff or modify stuff slightly. But yeah, Grisif also asked, and this is how John asked the same question: what are the valid, invalid, positive, negative, justifiable, unjustifiable reasons for that beloved by the OSR rules light hack aesthetic reskinning? So is reskinning worthwhile or not?
Yeah, I think so. In the sense that um, I think it's good if you want to sort of like throw people off their game a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Again, we talked about it before, right? People, they, especially players too, they get at some point they memorize the entire monster manual, and it can get a bit uh, it
Mm.
can get a bit stale and predictable if you don't have like a ton of new monsters in there. So in that case, aesthetically reskinning things or even describing them in a way so that's not immediately obvious what's going on, uh, that's a way to sort of like mask that and to trigger that automatic. Basically, it if you don't do that, it goes from a game of like um, observation and picking up clues
Mm.
and maybe
Mm.
scouting or picking up cues and reacting to you know uh, reacting and observing what happens to the field to almost a game
Mm.
of like memorization where it's like, okay, that's an
Yeah.
umber hulk, it's going to do this and this and this, bam, and then you quickly come up with a solution.
Mm.
It's there is that can be fun, but if the majority of the game becomes that, I do think something is lost. So, okay, aesthetic reskinning, we do that for that. We do aesthetic reskinning for, I'm a big fan of like mood and atmosphere a little bit more than most guys in CAG. So, I will also do it to just if I'm like, well, just to sort of convey a vibe or a mood.
Mhm.
You can do aesthetic reskinning for that. That to
Um,
me,
of,
these are the two
of course,
justifiable ways. Owen will
Gary
provide the
Gygax.
third.
Yeah,
Gary
Gary
Gygax says
Gygax
never aesthetically
aesthetically
reskin. I'll
reskins.
kill you, is what he said. Sorry,
No,
go ahead.
he aesthetically reskins goblins. He says fights as. Um,
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm being of course it's not a full reskin, it's just using the combat stats. But of course the idea that you do not have to infinitely reinvent the wheel to have a
Yeah.
basic encounter, it's there in the monster manual. We literally studied the entry today, which is like, hey, rather than having a separate goblin profile for this, just look at another profile that's in this book.
Oh
And that you
yeah.
can very quickly memorize. You can very quickly memorize because all it is this many hit points and this many this thaco, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
So
I think if you had to do like say you transport the players to some alien planet, say, right, and then they encounter this entire biology, but it's mostly just like more or less mundane animals, then just use
mhm.
whatever mundane animal stats slightly modified or
Yeah,
whatever.
well,
Here's an alien
and
deer, a deer equivalent,
yeah,
right? Yeah, of
yeah,
course.
well, and Traveler does that. Traveler does that.
Yeah, you should do it
That
like that. Otherwise, it's
it
madness.
it has types of animal,
Yeah,
and like grazer, hunter, killer,
right,
and it gives and you can customize to some degree up to weight and number of attacks and type of armor. So you can customize stuff so that they are not earth animals. You could make a new one, that's fine, but the
right.
generic encounter tables will, for instance, generic encounter table for Mission to Mithril has two unique monsters, and it has a unique encounter with one of those monsters as well. The rest are animals. The others are all generic, and in our game, we have just called them. This is the buffalo. This is
Yeah,
buffalo. This is antelope. And I'm like, oh, and I've given them descriptions. I'm like, oh yeah, this antelope is like, it's mammalian. It's got 4 legs, but the eyes are on stalks or something. I've given some weird description, but I'm like,
sure.
you record it as antelope for the
An
purpose of
antelope
us.
analog. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
of course, right? It's just
So they
some niche that,
understand.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah. No,
and
of
and
course.
that's of course with Traveller, which is a classic game. It is a CAG. It's classic sci-fi. The point is with that you gotta, given the sheer variety of worlds, you've got to have some shorthand for monsters, for the animals you meet, or else you're going to have to create literally millions over not over the course of a campaign, but over the course of, like, if you like, generating stuff for every
Every
planet.
planet should
Yeah,
have its own monster manual and
yeah,
unique
yeah,
mythology that the
yeah,
characters interact
exactly.
with for like 1 hour and then they fly
Yeah,
away again
exactly,
with their
exactly.
space
As soon
vessel.
as you've
Yeah.
got, yeah, exactly. If you've got a fairly mobile Traveller campaign, you've got to have a degree of interchangeability, and there's a degree to which that is probably true, to a limited degree with D&D, is that you're like, unless it really matters, if they're like, oh, can we, what animals are on the new continent? Come up with some different animals, but you can probably just use most of the same animals when they sail to the different continent.
So yeah, oh yeah,
Yeah,
efficiency and as
just
placeholder, I
reskin.
think it's a great
Yeah.
addition. Yeah, to what was
Yeah,
previously stated. Yeah, that's great.
yeah,
We got him. This
yeah.
should help
We got
John.
we got him. Commodore asks, "What's your favorite dinosaur and why?"
Oh, let's see. I'm gonna go with like I've been indoctrinated by Jurassic Park since I was a small
Mm,
boy. So the Deinonychus, which is
mm,
uh, that's the actual they call them velociraptors in Jurassic Park, but the actual
yeah.
velociraptor is like the size of like a turkey. So but the Deinonychus is the actual like the properly sized sort of like raptor. Um, it's a cool animal. In D&D, it has some sort of exploding rake attack, where just like
Mm,
these big cats, if it hits, you get the additional attacks in with the legs. Um, it's just very large
yeah.
damage output, very fast.
Mm,
Very cool to use. In addition to that, there's also something about just having a monster that doesn't have anything special. You don't have a breath
mm,
weapon, you don't have illusion powers. It's just no, it's a giant chunk of hit points
mm,
that does a
mm.
ton of damage if you charge, like a Styracosaur or an
Yeah.
Ankylosaur or something like that.
I've enjoyed using T-Rexes. I think they're fun. Um, yeah. I'm trying to think. I had a player who's polymorphed into like a brontosaur a few times, high level player.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, no, T-Rex is fun. I don't think I've ever run. Is the Dilophosaur an entry? I need to go and check.
Which one? Which one?
Pachycephalosaurus,
Dilophodon?
the one that spits acid or whatever it is.
It
Also
doesn't have an
Jurassic Park.
acid spitting ability in the game. Dilophosaurus, and it's that animal in Jurassic Park is not as I think nothing like the animal in the the actual game.
Yeah. I was going to say, it's also, given how much of what we think we know about dinosaurs we make up, you might as well believe the Monster Manual entry as like actual science. Yeah, it's the same reason why I believe there's goblins. But yeah,
Pachycephalosaurus, by the way, also very prestigious choice. I would have accepted
indeed.
Compsognathus, definitely Styracosaur over Triceratops. This is all very patrician.
I have done dinosaur racing, because having a game set in Schult where there's a bunch of dinosaurs and like the missing local god is a god of dinosaurs and mazes. So I have had PCs take part in dinosaur races and like different dinosaurs.
Did you misspoke? Did you mean child? Are you playing Venture Satanis's child?
No.
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 Ew.
As if I've ever played anything.
Ew.
No offense to Venger. No offense. No offense.
No offense.
No
but
offense
he
to Venger.
sucks.
No offense.
Very mean.
No offense. No offense.
That's I can't condone such hatred. Yeah. Okay. All right. Yes. There's another one. The what is it? Jesus, with these dinosaurs too, it's such an asshole encounter that I definitely used. There's one of these animals, and I'm sure you have these with mammals as well. It's like a herd animal, but it's pretty heavy. And if you walk up to it, there's a very high chance it'll startle and stampede. And that stampede is like incredibly deadly, like unreasonably deadly. So you can fill like hallways or valleys with them. You can block stairways with them, and then the PCs they move up, and then these big fucking stupid animals they get afraid and they stampede and they trample your party.
Didn't that happen to Mufasa?
That's the original. Yeah, I think that's what was his name? Damn it, I don't recall.
Didn't that
I've only watched this in
Gary?
Dutch. There was a cartoon about a very famous cartoon when I was growing up as a boy about some sort of elasmosaur or apatosaur or something like that, like one of these long diplodocus, one of these long-necked animals,
time.
right?
Land Before Time.
Yeah, that's the one. Land Before Time, and then the increasingly shitty
De Landen Before Time and
Het land van voor de tijd. No, I think it was even worse. It was called like Platvoet and zijn vriendjes or something, like Flatfoot and his friends. Like, but yeah, there was. I watched that a ton.
I feel like the rule for Dutch, it's a bit like German but more exaggerated. It's English words, but one of the words will be a really unusual form. So it'll be like De Landen Before een chronologicon.
Nee, dan is het echt het land van voor de tijd or something like that. It's even duller. Don't worry about that. Yeah. That's right. Okay.
We have very cool. Big problem.
This is the talk about the dinosaur segment. Also Moses.
The Dutch language, bit of a dinosaur.
Leo shut the fuck up, faggot. I'll kill you. Sorry. Okay, there goes the just bleep that out, don't worry.
Yeah. Yeah, you can pursue Prince for private vengeance on the social media platforms
so
of your choice.
Mosasaur, very respectable. Leopleurodons, ichthyosaurs. I could talk about dinosaurs all the time. Oh, they're all good. They're all the best. How can you hate them?
Yep. I mean, you've got some hatred in your heart. That's what we found out here.
That's right. For those who malign my beautiful, not at all inelegant language.
Yeah, he's very calm and pleasant up until. Yeah. Okay.
That was in jest, by the way, and I disavow, etc.
I disavow. When he said he's going to kill me,
do that. He paid me $5. I didn't want to do it. But
I only got cancelled. Yeah. In a way, haven't I given you the platform to be hateful, to be evil?
Yeah. No, this hate came all from me. Owen definitely would never condone that sort of stuff. Okay, all right,
Yeah, I
all right.
condone
Moving on.
different hatred.
Correct. Moving on.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
else do we have in the bag?
We didn't have well, I said we had questions. We didn't have. We had several variations on questions, which we mostly answered. I think Lynch asked, and Lynch may still be in the chat. He did ask about how would you run a dungeon entirely of thought eaters, but I'm not. I'm not sure if that was
Yes,
a
I
sincere
do want to
question.
talk about that. There are some incredible
Mm-hmm.
asshole monsters in MM1 that I think
Mm,
the asshole monsters have almost gone extinct. The OSR
mm,
kind of brought them back, but I
mm.
think the original, the
Yeah.
pure Gygaxian vision of asshole monsters is like here in MM1 and has
Mm,
not been. Um, Everything has. I feel like every other iteration of the game has kind of watered them down. But here you've got like rust monsters. You've got the maybe the Varghoul is Monster
mm,
Manual 2 and not 1. Okay, so that's an asshole
mm.
monster, by the way. The Disenchanter also Monster Manual 2. The Rot Grob. You've got your
No,
your black puddings.
but also like level drain and ethereal undead.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
right. Okay, so
Mm,
these things definitely have a purpose, and
mm,
everybody's like they suck, and that's true, and they should suck, but sometimes literally, sometimes levels. But the point with them is it becomes a totally different type of encounter if you randomly encounter them in a place where you don't know that where they're at, then it's like, oh, geez, that sucks, right? Then it's very mean. You can still do it, it's still fun, but
mhm,
there's kind of mean spiritedness to it where it can't happen too often. But having really good treasure somewhere and then guarding it with a bunch of like super asshole monsters, right? If the PCs
mhm,
know that they're on this shore before a lake, there's this abandoned tower of like the ancients, and they say that like your very mind will be like sucked out, like, and it used to belong to this coven of
mm,
wizards, and you fill it to the brim with thought eaters, and they consult like a bunch of sages after like one really really fucked up expedition, and then they discover what's there, and you put really really great treasure in there, then it's totally fair. It's a totally legitimate challenge
yeah.
because they decide whether or not they want to like engage with that, and you
Hmm.
just
Yeah.
oh, you're going to exert a terrible price. That's awesome. Of course,
Yeah.
of course you want to do that.
I I did notice, by the way, I didn't do a thorough comparison of the two fungi which came to Black Swells. But
Yes.
I did notice one interesting specific change, and there are a couple that I thought looked like this, but I need to properly read the Psychedelic Fantasies version. Is one change was that there's the orifice which can heal you, but if you're too damaged, in the original it just eats you. In the new one, it like spits you out or tries to take some of your health and spit you out. And I thought that was an interesting thing that I wondered how far that was indicative of an OSR philosophical change away from deadly towards exploratory and cooperative, like, oh, let's try to work out these puzzles and situations. Because that
uh
definitely is something which that kind of trend is no longer prominent. And I think that's an interesting thing looking at an actual adventure revision which removed, and it's not a super upfront and deadly adventure anyway. It's the way it is deadly is via chip damage. It's survival horror, as my friend put it, where you have to survive loads of damage. But I thought it was interesting that literally one thing which was a save or die is not in the revised version.
so yeah, a bit of context for the audience is that the fungus that came to Blackswell is an adventure by, was it Gavin
By
Norman?
Eve Gein. No, it's
Eve
by Eve
Gein.
Gein or
But it,
Jean.
it got a
Yeah,
Dolmenwood release and reskin where they took out
yeah,
all the cool ass
yeah.
science fiction elements, including, I assume, there was a power armor there, wasn't there?
Hmm. Sort of.
Oh,
They did change the background and they took out some of the sci-fi elements. Yeah,
okay, yeah,
from
yeah, yeah.
my
Anyway,
my
yes, that
from my comparison. I'm not an expert in the original. I've only
but
skimmed
to
it, so I'm just
engage with
saying.
what you're
Yeah,
saying, I
yeah.
I I don't know. I think this may be more like also like a lot more geared towards what the likely player base of Dolmenwood is going to be, which is going to be an OSC, kind of like a
Mm,
more casual, newer audience
mm,
that might not be so on board with the original.
mm,
Uh, you know,
mm,
OSR style is very much OD&D style, so that they kind of like embrace that idea of like unpredictability and
mm.
randomness and menace a bit more. And I can imagine that gets you kind of dial that down for a newer audience because they may not like it as much, or they may not be familiar
And
with it.
especially if you think their background is certain kinds of things. But
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. Um, yeah, like giant swamp spider here, for instance, in the Donwood monster book, is save versus doom, which is death, poison death, or suffer 1d6 damage for the next 5 rounds. So it's up to 30 damage. It's pretty dangerous, but
Right.
it's also It's also survivable. It's not save or die, and I think that's pretty common. I think in the one example I've seen of a spider in a Donwood adventure recently from the recent set, it is a save or it's not save or die. It's a giant spider, but you save or take damage. And there were always spiders like this. I've used them. Like I've used I think things where I'm like, okay, the goblin spider. This was an OA hex. The goblin spider can save or kill, but it's supported by huge spiders, which are save or take damage after a turn. Like, so there was a mixture there in the encounter. And I think that's good, and it's good to have the variety, but I do miss that. I think what you call the arsehole creature, I think there is a value to it. Gets misused because people assume that every monster in the MM should have the same frequency, like, or virtually the same frequency. Like, okay,
I'm not
yeah,
sure.
you should have
I,
a goblin layer, and then you should have a ghost, and then you should have, like, as if it's all at the same weighting. And I think, of course, actually the harshest stuff is there as a secret level boss, like, oh yeah, there's the secret extra treasure, but it's protected by something really dangerous, or
well,
as an unusual extra threat that you have to plan for and deal with, and that does have significant repercussions. Yeah.
it also makes sense in if you go more towards like OD&D, you would have more random events or weirdness, which would increase, like, say, your ability scores, or you would, yeah, again, you find extra magic items and all that stuff. So if you have more variation
Yes.
to begin with, then it would be more common. So then losing it isn't as bad because it's all more temporary. But if it's more if you're more used to
Mm,
like 5e, which is derivative of 3e style, like sort of build your character, like you're sending a child to college, you pick out exactly what he's going to do, then
mm,
it's um I guess then it feels like it sucks because you get
yeah.
your dealt a loss that is like just like it permanently alters like your power curve, and there's almost no way to like
Yeah.
recapture it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and though you're happy to accept, you might be like, okay, sometimes you have to raise dead. It's something where I'm thinking about. I've had a couple of players who, in my kind of my hybrid crap brew campaign, died straight to poison saves, like save versus
Yeah,
poison kind of things. And in
it's
one
rough, but
case,
it happens.
there's an interesting thing, and they're both good players. No, is interesting, and partly this about experience. But in one, they were in an adapted partial version of Tower of the Stargazer. Um,
Right.
Actually, I say that I use the layout. I use the layout and some of the rooms, but it wasn't the Tower of the Stargazer. It was just something different. That doesn't matter anyway. And they were like,
Right.
okay, let's go and get this treasure. And there was a corridor into a room full of treasure, and all the other players were like, I think that's a trap. It's really interesting. They're like, I just don't trust that. And one player was like, well, it could be a trap, but it can't be that bad. And a stone spider fell on him and killed him. And you could tell the player coped with it. He was like, okay, fair enough. But you could tell he was like, oh, I didn't think that would happen. I didn't think that was a possibility. And that was the thing where it's good to train your players to know what to expect, but also you kind of feel for them where they're like, their expectation has just not been there. On the other hand, in G1, a magic user they found the secret door to the secret treasure. They actually did really well with all that. But then they're like, okay, I guess I'll walk in. And a guy fell in the pit and died. And they raised it. They raised dead in both cases. But that player was, I think, much more prepared by then. They're much more like, oh, yeah, okay, this is much more normal. I get this. That's annoying. I should have thought about the fact that there might be a trap there. And so, yeah, like, I think it is a case of adaptation where players also accept it's part of it's Russian roulette at some level as well. Like, the bullet might be in there somewhere, and you can't just muck about endlessly and assume that no
Just
consequences will be very
expect,
serious.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
just get to explore at your leisure, and the game
yeah,
never
yeah,
takes a bite back or
yeah,
never throws
yeah,
a
yeah.
like a harder punch. Yeah.
So it's in some ways it's tutelary. I also do think there are things where it's about threatening different parts, and I think about the ghost is obviously an MM1 monster, and the ghost might be better in some ways than some of the straight level drain guys. The ghost is on because it there's a system shock check
Ages
for
is even
age.
more
Yeah,
harder
yeah,
to, yeah,
yeah, yeah.
harder to
But
recoup.
it
True.
means it is hitting a different part of the character sheet, and so
Yeah.
it mean continues to be relevant against even quite advanced, tough, super prepped characters who
Yeah,
have
of
like
course. It's
I've got
almost
I've got a ring
impossible
of
to
protection.
reverse.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And especially because you have max age. I did this for this Dolmenwood game actually, which, but it is the case that they have every ancestry has, or kin, I think they're called, has max age, and so I've generated the
Yeah.
max ages for the characters,
Yeah.
and that's important. And I think there are literally a couple of things to interact with, not loads, but I could add those. I can add those in. But the fact, like, there is a hard limit on that, and also if you fail the system shot check, you die, and you have to get raised, and you lose constitution, etc. Etc. The whole point is it's another way to threaten even quite strong characters in a way that's saying there's different ways. Have a hundred mobs attack from different directions, and it might take them a couple of rounds to do enough damage to scare them all off, and the mobs might do damage to them that is serious. That can happen. But the point is, a ghost is just always bad. A ghost is always threatening.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah. As E says, seventh level cleric ghost aging immunity is a very nice niche power. Yeah, the point is, you've got to that point, but then you've got a class who can deal with that partially. Exactly. And I think it means that though you shouldn't use all these elements all the time, as if you're like, oh yeah, everything is equally important. That's the point I made. It means that there's always the option to have either the players know the Russian roulette bullet might be there, so they have to be serious and clever, but also it gives them the chance of the chance as DM of giving them a unique threat that they either have to be prepared for specially, or which they can be shocked by and have to adapt to, rather than be like, okay, I guess we do the same thing we do in every other encounter, which is a problem. You see, good parties end up with strategies and tactics they reuse, and that can become stale if overused.
Um, it becomes that's like a part where I feel there the burden is solely on the shoulders of the DM. That
I
like,
agree. I know. I
yeah,
agree. I agree. But I'm saying the whole point is, like, it doesn't mean it's not true. If it's like every problem can be solved in the same way, the game has become stale. Whereas if
right.
you're like, oh, there's this new problem. Yeah. So, what is your favorite butthole creature?
What?
What's your favorite neg? What's your favorite neg monster?
Okay, all right, I understand. Okay. Uh, geez. Ah, it's gonna become some sort of level draining monster, probably. That's level drain is still like the best. Ghosts, like I feel I could theoretically love ghosts more. It's just I haven't had much opportunity to use them.
Mm,
Characters have to be pretty strong in order for you to
mm,
justify throwing that at them without just mauling them. Um,
mm,
so it has more impact, but man, the rust monsters are also just it's a nice
mm.
wake up call. It's just like, ah, here you go, buddy. And most
Would
oozes
you-
work like that as well. Actually,
yeah.
it's just good to have to to get them to run, or like force them to evade an encounter or something like that.
Oh yeah, no, rust monsters are bad. Genuinely very bad. Um, but
I do
in
feel.
combo or in a dungeon, not on their own, they're annoying on their own. But in combo or in a dungeon, in an environment where there are other threats, they're very bad. They're very negative.
Oh yeah, but even mummies kind of work like that, where
Mm,
it seems okay, but then eh, it's not just like you get paralyzed, but even if you survive the encounter, you've just been tagged with like mummy rot that you kind of have to
mm,
you have to
yeah.
consider like, should we go back? No,
What
fuck.
about
Okay, we can't
what
use
about
magic
but
healing
of course
now,
for
and
that giant rats, of course, 5% chance of disease. Um, got
that's
to make your players roll
that
for it.
very rarely procs. Although I have had people die from the deadly disease of giant
Yeah,
ticks. That was pretty
yeah,
good.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I was going to say I did in the in the starter adventure in the New Dawnwood campaign book, which is not one that I'd read before. I've had the PDF for a year, but I just hadn't read it. Pipes of Droom and Knoll. You face Crookhorns, which are the corrupted goatmen. Goatmen are like a normal ancestry, but Crookhorns are corrupted by the Naglord. And all of them have a chance of giving you disease if you hit them, or if you start mucking about in their bedding to loot. So to loot stuff. Obviously, all their bedding is infested with whatever disgusting disease they have. So you have to save versus doom, so versus poison. So yeah, that's quite fun. And you're like, that is actually like, if you think if that is a usually over 50% chance of getting a disease that you then have to go and get cured, that's quite fun. I think, yeah, I agree with your choices. I'd need to again go through the old to decide what is the kind of, I mean, there's several of the beetles actually. You mentioned the boring beetle, the bombardier beetle, which I think might be FF. That's good. I think
Bombardier is also main. I think.
Is that also
probably.
Yeah, the bombardier is fun. Actually, my the guy they rescued, the 9th/5th guy, elf guy they rescued from G1, who one of my players is playing in the adventure I've mentioned about being in Fairy. He monster summoned some bombardier beetles, which I was like, oh, these are fun. Like, they are surprised. They're not super big or tough or anything. They're not the biggest thing ever, but they just have an annoying, persistent damage, which is quite clever. Which I quite liked. Yeah, they're good. So that's the thing. I've been on the receiving end, but yeah, I'm trying to think. I had another idea in mind of like a cool oh, do you know Slard? There is a Slard that implants eggs in people it hits.
It's most slot, right? Or maybe just the lower tiers, but yeah,
The
those
lower
are
tier
nasty as well. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that I like that, because that's the thing where they're annoying and they're doing you damage, and you don't want them to do mid-tier damage. That's bad. But then, you know, if you're on the plains, you're mid to high level, you know, you're 5th level or something, so you can cope with some of it. But it's the fact you also don't know who's been infected, and they can infect loads of you. And, you know, yeah, there are options for this, but it's just I thought, isn't it, that's something which, again, it just starts doing annoying things to players, and that's much less immediate, so it's much less genuinely awful and neggy. But it's just, again, a way of making the players play the whole game rather than just play the bit of the game that is easy or that they are used to. And this, I actually think, when we talk about D20 derived D&D, one of the biggest design things is that problem of you just don't seem to play a whole game. You know, setting aside issues like, oh, do they have domains? I don't mean that. I mean the stuff that the game has always had that the players have to work out. Most of it because it becomes D20 plus something to solve every problem. The players solve everything in very similar ways that are not very interesting, and you have to really work hard, I think. And I have done this, but work hard in that kind of context to challenge them and to make them play the whole game rather than just roll through on the default. And I think the Negi monster does that. The Negi monster creates a different, and the same thing if they're monsters that like put out lights or that anything that casts darkness. It's the same thing. Anything that's casting magical darkness, stuff that just creates a different problem, is fun, I think.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Great. We should start to wind up, shouldn't we?
Correct.
Yeah. Did you have any closing thoughts? What is? Let's. I'll give you one final question that is on but also off topic. What is another monster book you would add?
Ooh, so that people, only one. Okay.
There can be only one.
There can be only one. I think the obvious choices would be, are of course MM2 and Feed Folio. I do a bit of. I actually think there's in Dragon Magazine there was a sort of creature catalog collection. I think comprising several volumes of like new creatures.
3 of them.
For whatever reason, it's like whatever it's like the Dead Sea Scrolls of the Monster Manual. Basically, it really does feel like that. Like it could be in there, a bunch of missing pages.
A lot of it is by Moore and Greenwood as well, so you have good monster designers who are doing it. Now, I like the CCs. Anthony Huso uses them a lot, obviously. I like the CCs and I use them. And there's a few other Dragon Magazine blocks, by the way. They're not quite as the CCs are quite big, which helps. But there's a couple of other Dragon Magazine ones. Like there's an Ed Greenwood one of like monsters in weird woods, and it's like only 6 monsters. It's not enough to make its own entry for our purposes. But you're like, oh wow, that is just an incredibly high value, isn't it? You're like, that is so high. All of these are good monsters. Great.
And yes. And now
I think that's where the wood giant comes up, I think.
now the question: what about a
Mm,
modern contemporary monster manual from the
mm.
OSR, Owen?
I don't, so the initial question I would say, because I play a lot of settings, I
Yes.
read setting monster. So I'd say for old school stuff, by that old school I mean TSR. I don't mean like just
Yeah.
first E.
Yeah.
Obviously, I definitely say my favourites for that are probably Orient Adventures. Somewhat that's very thematic, but for use, the Dark Sun. There's two Dark Sun ones. They are both horrendous, but in a good way. You're like, oh my word, this is the players are going to have the time of their lives being beat up by this.
The
They're
psionic
really fun.
psionic
Yeah.
cacti and like all sorts of
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah.
yeah, it's like a Barsoom
Oh yeah.
on
Yeah,
steroids.
it's
Yeah.
amazing. It's
Yeah, on
amazing. I
acid.
love it. I love it. So what
Yeah.
probably the Dark Sun MCA, I guess, for the sake of argument. MCB is also really good as well. MC2. But yeah, new ones, I don't know. Like I actually do have affection, even if I've grown past him anyways, what I need from a book. I do have affection for Veins of the Earth for having a couple of really just some really good monsters and some really good ideas for monsters. But it's obviously not wholly usable as a monster manual, so I'm not sure it really counts. The same with Fire on the Velvet Horizon, which I think is inferior to
Yeah,
Veins of the
because it
Earth.
doesn't have any
Yeah,
stats. It's like
yeah,
that's a.
yeah.
I mean, and I
Veins
guess
has
yeah,
some stats. Veins has
yeah.
generic. Here's what this would generally be, but you have to adapt it more. And you're like, I still don't really want that. I want
You
the whole
could
thing.
use veins in
Yeah,
OE and even in 1E with a little bit of
yeah, yeah,
adjustment. I don't think that
yeah,
that's the
yeah.
concern.
No, no.
There's one. What was it called again? Jeez, it was the Osric
Mm.
the Osric Monster Manual. What was it called again? Give me 1 second while I dig through my own.
E, are you in the chat? What is the Osric
No,
monster
don't
manual
tell
that
me.
Peter's
Don't you
thinking of?
dare. Don't you dare. It is Monsters of Myth. Okay.
Mm.
Monsters of Myth sort of try to go for like uh it's basically trying to be like Monster Manual 3, so sort of trying to capture the
Mm.
style of um
Yeah.
the original, Fiend Folio and Monster Manual 2 and Monster Manual
Mm.
1. I think it's pretty respectable. I don't refer to it nearly as often as I would to uh Monster Manual 2
MM1
and
and 2.
Folio. Yeah.
Yeah.
I may have maybe there's I'm trying to think if there was a Monsters of Myth entry in Slith Hive. There may or may not be.
Mm.
Ooh, difficult to
Ooh.
say. But that's a pretty respectable entry in
Mm.
general. I'm not as I remember. It's very interesting as you bring up Veins of the Earth because just today I had again a commenter on my blog was like, well, would you still rate this 3 now? Just with hindsight, and I was like, well, truthfully, I'd probably rate it a little lower. But the the monster manual part, I think of it was
Mm.
pretty cool. That probably
Yeah.
holds up by far the best.
Yeah. I think, and I think with that, with some work, I think again for me, I need like, though this is not the book I'd recommend, it represents the stuff I'd recommend. Because I haven't read this cover to cover. I started with Dawnwood. I started with Wormskin, and I started running a Dawnwood campaign. I ran it for 5 years, 2018 to 2023, and went through the Patreon and stuff. So, and
Yeah,
though there are monsters that don't work, as again as at a setting level of a full realization of the stuff that you could do in this setting, and functionality, like the stats work. It is actually what one thing is that generally the stuff works. Is yeah, I've loved that. I'd need to have a think if there's any other. I don't know. I don't read OSR monster manuals anymore. So there's, I don't know.
they
On the whole,
exist
yeah, yeah,
in the
yeah, they exist. They
beginning.
exist.
Um,
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
know Skirpla Purples did what is it?
Mm.
He just
The
reskinned
re-up,
everything.
the
He
re-up.
skirpled everything. Yeah, he just
Scalpel.
took the same ideas that other people had and ran with them. No, but
Yeah.
he did add some
Shahar
utility there.
likes
Like
Sea
it's an easy.
Hawkins.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
Hawkins is
Shahar likes Sea
monsters.
Hawkins. Yeah.
I mean, I love him too. He's a great adventure writer, but yeah, I haven't. I wouldn't be able to tell specifically what monsters he wrote, but I'll definitely take your word for it. From what I've seen thus far, they're
Yeah,
pretty good. Yeah.
yeah.
Is there a reason why we don't have a one definitive? Well, it's maybe unfair because there's so many different sort of like viewpoints in the OSR. That
Mm,
there's no
mm.
definitive sort of like monster manual of its own.
Yeah. I mean, I think the answer is already contained in what we said at the very top of the episode, which is that it's a space or niche that's already been filled by the Monster Manual. I know that sounds
Right.
redundant, but the point is, it's something where you cannot rediscover America. In the sense, you can't be the first. You could discover it for yourself. You can drive across America. You can have the Great American Road Trip, I assume.
Yeah.
But you can't be Columbus, and you
We can't
can't
go
be,
back.
and you
Yeah.
can't be,
Yeah.
and you
True.
can't be the guys who go to Vinland, and you can't be the guys who cross the land bridge. You can't be a civilizational discoverer. And I think the OSR, especially as it's fragmented, it becomes easier rather than harder to say this is within this context the most important work. So, oh yeah, this is like a
Yeah.
definitional work within this context. But for a long time, it was just lots of people throwing lots of stuff at the wall, and none of it
Yeah.
was ever going to be Harry. All of it was going to be this person trying to rediscover the Great American road trip. Essentially, I think.
Yeah, or like for like just oh, here we go. I made something cool. May it
Mm,
inspire you. I remember what is it? A Jeff Ryan's Undead Monster. Where I was like, I can't believe
mm,
this doesn't exist already. This is great. So like it's a what is
mm,
it? It was like a giant bowl of heads of skulls that like
mm,
rolled
mm,
down slopes and would bite.
mm.
And if you got killed, it would obviously it would incorporate your head into the giant
Yeah.
head rolling
Well,
ball.
I know that
I
is
was
a
like,
I know
oh,
that
this
is
is
a common I know
brilliant.
that's a common Dutch experience, but most of us don't
Yeah.
have that in our
It's like a
lives. So
Castlevania monster. Like
yeah,
I was like,
yeah.
that's effing perfect.
Yeah.
That's
You get this with
wonderful. Yeah.
it's also you get stuff like Zelda. Like I think you could just I'm not saying people should go and rip off Zelda, but when you're like playing Zelda is a good one for this. You're like, oh, that's a weird monster. Like it has loads of weird monsters in it, just in terms of cool stuff. Yeah, Lynch says he's used Monsters of Myth, and Shahar says, yeah, Dolman's fairies are pretty badass. I like the guys with gorges in their stomach.
Shahar
Um,
mentioning Acts
yeah,
2 does
he also
is
mentions
going
Axe too.
full on mythologically. Well, I mean, I guess
Mm,
that's kind of like what you have to do. That probably would be the way to do it
mm,
instead of like if you want your game to remain fresh and you want to like
mm,
sort of set yourself
mm,
apart, then yeah, why not reinterpret some of these monsters? Although of course the problem is that you might lose some compatibility, but I think that for the
mm.
most part, Axe doesn't care. They're just like, oh
Yeah,
yeah, I
yeah.
mean, yeah.
I think it's also, I'd say that is an obvious area for delving into and getting more out of, is because though that to some degree talking about fairy is one example, you could say, oh well, we have got the Planescape MC2 as an
Yeah,
example, but you're like
yeah,
that's only one kind of very Americanized fairy. Whereas yeah, Donwood has lots of other fairies. Yun Suin has a lot of like, oh, what would we do if we had some of the Orient Adventure type feel in the Monster Manual as well, but different. And I had another. Oh, also the note of David McGrogan on Noisms, i.e. Yun Suin. He did write that one-off Peridot zine, which also had like a bunch of Sumerian and Mesopotamian mythological creatures in it. So you're like,
yeah.
oh yeah,
I'm
that's
sure
yeah,
if you would
that is a
spit
niche that you
through
could do.
yeah. Although
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure if you would spit through the pages of Dragon, you would find like
mm.
you would
Loads of
find
those would
some
be in there. Yeah,
incarnation of every single mythological and
mm.
fantastical
Yeah.
creature would have been codified at some point.
Yeah, no, to some degree, I'm sure that's true. I think it's just that's as a principle, that is a space people can go into if they're like, oh,
Yeah,
what kind of
of
set?
course.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Lynch mentions the gibbering mouth. So cool. No, good discussion. I guess we'll
I liked it
end
too.
that there.
It was
Yeah,
pretty
yeah,
good, kind of energetic. So this
yeah,
was my show,
mm,
guys. This is
yeah.
the
And
I
therefore, the
called it the
cancellation
Owen
for Prince's
show.
comments is entirely on Prince.
That's true. The implication, the drone strikes. Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Oh yeah,
Well,
Shahar mentions he had Heron Men. Yeah, I was going to say I've used Thorks. If you want to talk about fiend folio, because it's an Anthony Huso table for a particular Nightwolf Win room, I have used Thorks, who are a cool fiend folio weird stalk heron creature who, yeah,
I,
lays weird eggs.
giant, monstrous, supernatural birds
Mm,
definitely deserve more love. There's one in
mm,
the pagoda where
mm,
the characters they approach the pagoda and there's just all these crows on the top. Very simple, right? Just a bunch of giant crows, a normal giant size. They're
mm-hmm,
the size of like tackles or whatever, like just pretty big. And then an actual human-sized monster crow that can very simple. It can cast darkness, right? But
mm-hmm,
that's such a good encounter. Like as soon as the characters they I think that as soon as they attempt to climb the pagoda, like all these fucking crows attack. That was awesome. So yeah, giant birds, evil giant birds of any kind are all great.
They are. Lynch, Yun Suin is, or the Yellow City is one of the places connected to my Nightwolf Inn. So my players have gone there and they work with the Slugman. So I've used it a bit more than that. I wouldn't mind using it more again, but it is, so many ideas and so little time. Yeah, well, I'd say we've done encounter design discussions before. We probably will again, but I think that would be relevant for that. Would be to talk about how you actually use monsters. Is
Oh,
probably a
if you
challenge.
have 5 minutes for an interjection, it's almost like
Mm-hmm.
I I always, maybe that's not the best thing to look at, but I look at like I have another hobby. I play a lot of
Mm-hmm.
Doom. That's the original Doom and Doom 2, and there's a lot of WODs for that. So that's like basically fan made level packs, and very rarely do you see that fans have added their own monsters and guns. The vast majority, probably because it's much easier and much less work, is simply maps made with the existing sort of like set. And but nevertheless, if you play some of these best WODs, these are much stronger than the original games ever were.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all placement, right? It's like
Mm-hmm.
you have a small set of like threats at your disposal, but by placement or by combination and with a bunch of other tricks, you can create encounters that have never been tried. Like you can make challenges that push players to like new heights, new levels of extremity. And in a way, it's much
Mm-hmm.
they often challenge the player in ways that are much more interesting than having the ability to create
Mm-hmm.
a new creature. And I think that's a good way
Yeah.
of thinking about it as well, where every single creature that you add should add something. I think if you're going into real game design and not just like your own, it's maybe a bit too purist, but it's probably a good design philosophy that every time you add a creature, that creature should have like a distinct role that's not already
Mm.
fulfilled by what's there already, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Even though the monster
I
manual
think that.
fails this test spectacularly, this doesn't
Mm,
matter. But if you're getting
yeah.
into new stuff, then think about it like that.
Yeah. It's Go
Yeah,
Galaxy building book. Yeah.
yeah,
I'd say.
exactly.
I think what I would
Hobby
say to
horse.
add
Yeah.
to that. What I'd say to add to that is this relates to something I was hearing someone say about recently, but I've also thought about for a few reasons. One, because of being involved in the kind of defunct old school miniature and you get it with Hex Encounter board games, but I'm thinking about miniature games like second edition Warhammer 40k, original Necromunda, things like that, community edition
Yeah.
Necromunda, stuff like that. And the fact that it being a dead game can be quite helpful for it, because what it doesn't mean that people stop playing it. It means that you end up with settled answers and settled ways of discussing stuff. And it's not that there can't be any new discussions or any new ideas, but the point is you're not having to worry about iterating the rules. You're just working on clarifying and tidying up and then playing and doing, rather than always seeking the new. But it's similar when you look at my son, my 8-year-old. I've always loved it. He's got really into Age of Empires and Age of
Right.
Mythology, which we actually just got. We
Great
just
game.
got
Yeah.
the most recent versions of both on, because we had versions before, but I just got the most recent versions on sale. But there, you're like, a big thing wasn't so much. The scenario editor for AoE2 meant people were making stuff, and that was cool. And people were like, oh yeah, loads of cool mod scenarios are coming out. And then the community never died, which meant they got the HD edition, which was just a remaster, and they got a new expansion. And the expansion was basically fan made, but with fans who'd become part of the company, and so on and so forth. That's really interesting. That there you have an official version of that Doom iteration. The game is the same except for quality of life upgrades. There are tiny balance patches that have happened over 25 years, 26 years now. But and new civilizations get added, so there is some degree of new material. But it's a similar thing that what improves as they're redesigning scenarios is they realize what doesn't work, and it's not about always creating something new, but about making what has already existed excellent. And yeah, I think so. You can apply that kind of general dictum about old school games in those two different contexts, and Doom as well. Doom, AoE, and miniature games that have not been supported for 30 or 40 years. Is you just end up working out the best ways they can work, rather than always trying to work out the newest thing. And I think that's it's a great advantage of playing AD&D as your base game, is you can do that rather than always be stressing about what the best new rule is. Pick a set of rules and play it. Great. We'll end the stream there then. Thanks everyone for tuning in.
All right. Excellent.
Yeah.
Thanks everyone, and see you next time.
Yeah. See you in 3 or 4 weeks.